Carmelo Anthony gets a new trial, ladies and gentlemen. After bringing a 3.5 knife on school property, the man gets a new trial. Now, who is Carmelo Anthony? Carmelo Anthony is currently in prison serving a 35-year sentence after being convicted of red rum in June 2026, but he is actively back in court seeking a new trial. On August 19, 2026, Anthony's legal team successfully had the original trial judge, State District Judge John Roach, recused from the case. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is now a official new judge in the building. Yo, let me know your thoughts on that. A multi-day hearing began immediately after, under a new judge to determine his constitutional rights were violated during his initial trial. So now there is a new judge that is going to take care of the Carmelo Anthony case. And we will know as of today, the 21st of August. The ongoing post trial hearings have revealed a trove of highly disturbing background information on both Anthony and the victim. Now, my personal take, I think they should have left it alone with the 35 years because now, potentially, ladies and gentlemen, Carmelo Anthony could serve more time. I've heard very disturbing clips of this man talking about he's going to lick the knife with the blood still on the knife. Stop the cap, but let's keep on reading, Brad. Crazy work. The ongoing post trial hearings have revealed a trove of highly disturbing background information on both Anthony and the victim that the ongoing jury never saw. Defense attorneys argue that the broken gentleman's agreement regarding this character evidence ultimately preventing Anthony from testifying in his own defense. Meanwhile, prosecutors have presented a 75 pages. We're going to cover that with this content. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you wipe your feet when you're in the building. Um, First of all, for the record, before we go into the live, you do not bring a 3.5 pocket knife on school property. There is no excuse. And when you say that for the Carmelo Anthony, supporters, they don't have a response. How is that legal to bring a pocket knife on school property? That's some crazy work.
Let's see. Hold on one second. Is it gonna be okay? I don't know yet, man. Carmelo. Cara. Kar. Melo. Carmelo. What's your last name? Anthony. O-N-Y. Where are you in? I'm in 12th grade. 10th grade? You go to Emerson? No, sir. Where do you go? Centennial. Okay. I'm in 12th grade. 12th grade? Yes, sir. Okay. North Centennial. All right. Sit tight for me real quick, bud. All right? All right. Let me run this guy real quick. I haven't talked to him at all.
Yeah, I heard that in the background, dude in the back. So, oh, is that Ninja?
The new Black Panther Party. And
Bro, who is the Black Panther? Who? This is the new leader of the Black Panther Party? Stop the cap.
we're going to get their view on today's recusal of the judge. Oh, Black Power, yeah. Well, it's about goddamn time. All power to the people. That's the first step. Now we need for Carmelo to be released. All of the racist acts that took place under Judge Roach, from them not letting people come into the courthouse when it's supposed to be a
This is not the same Black Party as. This is a joke of a Black Party. They trying to show up for what? For clout? This is not the same Black Party as was in the past.
public hearing, from them not giving the jury instructions on self-defense, so Carmelo would have never got a murder case in the first place.
Hold on. So they're claiming self-defense. How is it self-defense? Because we have to add context to the situation because people want to push narratives and spread lies. The man is not allowed to bring a pocket knife on school property. Not only is he a endangerment to himself, but to everyone around him and that school grounds. So when is it okay? And he wasn't in the hood. It's not like he was in the trenches somewhere. He's in a nice neighborhood. I understand for sure there was racism obviously involved, but still, that does not condone bringing a knife on school property. That alone being caught is a felony. Then you want to premeditate and give the statement talking about F around and find out if you touch me. That's premeditation. He had plenty of opportunity to move around, but instead he wanted to prove a point. And he gets all this support. Why? Ample time for him to move around from the situation. Then I see some podcasts on different content creators pages. They talking about the boy had epilepsy. Even more reason for him to move around. Why are you entertaining a fight if you know you have a medical condition? If I know that if I'm touched and I have epilepsy, quote unquote, I'm not even going to entertain. You got this, bruh. You got it. But if my ego has to be involved, is a slap on the wrist to Carmelo Anthony. If you knew you was condition with epilepsy, move around. Why are you talking back to the guy that's initially the aggressor? Then the boy was suspended. That wasn't his original school. He was suspended. Did y'all know that? He wasn't even supposed to be there. So many red flags, so many opportunities for him to move around. He went looking for trouble. But yet, he gets support?
He would have had the jury would have had the option of manslaughter from the racism.
In one text message, Anthony allegedly fantasized about stabbing someone, writing, "When I stab someone."
What? When can I even say that on YouTube, bro? When I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. This dude is Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Who sends? I've heard and seen some crazy texts. Never. Who even thinks something like that, bro? So once again, my take, I think they should have left this case alone because now they're digging deeper into these entities, Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, rest in peace. And now they're bringing up the past, something that we shouldn't even know. This man is Dracula out here. Halloween ain't nothing but a couple of months. He did this last year. Talking about he's gonna lick the blood. What kind of satanic nonsense is this boy sending? Bro, once again, they should have left it alone. They trying to have a new trial, but now you're exposing the boy talking about he's gonna lick the blood off the blade. That's some nonsense. First of all, let's set the record straight. You do not bring a pocket knife on school grounds. Even if that situation did not occur, it's crazy? People want to push a narrative saying that, oh, you have the right to carry in the state of Texas, not on school property. Are y'all serious? So the same place where you send your offspring to learn to get an education is not the same place where you should have a pocket knife on your personnel. We got to stop the gap.
Buddy, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. Prosecutors say they also have numerous examples of Anthony's desire to start fights and to be in fights, and they argue that's what he went to the track meet to do that day. The reason none of that came out at trial is that the defense and prosecution had what they're describing as a gentleman's agreement, an off-the-record understanding that neither side would go into character evidence, including allegations of violence and bullying by Austin Metcalf. The defense now argues that Anthony chose not to testify in his own defense because at the last minute of the trial, prosecutors reversed course and told them if Anthony takes the stand, it would violate their agreement and open the door to all of those character issues being brought out. That agreement is a key part of the defense's argument as to why it is that Anthony deserves a new trial. And that's something we're going to continue to hear a lot more about through the rest of today and possibly into tomorrow. Prosecutors have already said that's part of the reason both sides agreed to this deal is because they didn't want to further enrage this public debate that was happening outside, where this was really, they felt, throwing gas onto an already big fire if they brought out a lot of these character attacks. Of course, going forward to the next trial, that agreement would not be in place, and all of this would be fair game. Prosecutors have said they would have brought all of this up if it weren't for that agreement.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now! When do we want it? Now! Say his name! Karmelo! Say his name! Karmelo! What's his name?
Karmelo!
What's his name?
Karmelo!
Say his name! Karmelo! Karmelo!
So Carmelo's getting chance and all the support when he's the one that brought the knife to school. How does that make sense? So they think he's the victim, but he's still alive. I understand that this man Metcalf was the aggressor and he was racist, but he didn't have a deadly weapon on school property. We had to add context. Remove the knife from the situation, Austin Metcalf would still be alive.
Justice! When do we want it? Now! He was right. We wouldn't even be here today. It would have never came to court.
Well, the judge who now is moving in, a brand new judge, right? And because of that change, the gag order in process was lifted. And so last night, Austin Metcalf's dad had a reaction to Anthony's bid for a new trial.
It's been the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life. Just losing my son. Alone, just that, alone. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to endure. Tomorrow is a decision if he gets a new trial or not. And we'll go from there. It's not going to change the facts. No matter what judge is presiding, no matter what lawyer is presenting the case, the facts are the facts.
Okay. And I want to correct that. That was that had nothing to do with the gag order. The gag order was lifted right after the conviction, but there is more from that dad reportedly today. I want to go back to Paul Morrow and just get your idea about where we are in this case.
Well, the fact.
And that's very disheartening of the father once again. Now he has to relive his son with this retrial. Imagine your son where you're supposed to learn. I understand once again, Austin Metcalf, he was the aggressor, but still, you send your son to go to school, you don't expect to get news that he is no longer going to come home because he got into a feud. Because let's keep it stacked. How many of y'all have got into a fight when you was in grade school? You may have gotten in trouble. You may have went to the court system, plea bargain, this, that, and the third. May have even gotten arrested. May have gotten expelled, but you still had the opportunity to be alive. Austin Metcalf doesn't have that same opportunity. I understand these boys was fighting, but why was it in Carmelo Anthony's mind thinking it's okay? His prefrontal cortex, where you have a decision making, the front part of your brain, and your front part of your brain doesn't develop to the age of 24, 25 as a young man, 21 for women. Still, how in your brain that God gave you on top of your shoulders do you think it's okay to bring a 3.5 pocket knife on school property? Then you want to premeditate and give the announcement talking about F around and find out. Bro, you had plenty of opportunity and chances to move around. And then you want to cry over spilled milk talking about, oh, I told him to not fuck with me and he pushed me and I pulled out the knife. First of all, you ran like a coward. So you could have ran before. Why did you want to run after you committed the action? Then people want to dissect the tape and look at the footage, talking about Carmelo Anthony was never in the tent. Bro, the man should have never been in school property. That he was suspended. He was suspended. He was invited by the ops. Why would you go to a rival school sitting underneath their tent? Then they wanted to push a narrative saying that it was raining so hard. That's why he had to go underneath the tent. Another lie. It was not raining that hard. This man Carmelo was looking for trouble, but he gets all the sympathy. What? Not all skin folk is kinfolk, and that's the same reason why people voted for Obama, just because he was a minority, just because he was black, could care less about his political views. Oh, Obama's black, let's vote for him. So just because Carmelo's black, we got to support Carmelo? Can we understand the situation at hand? Okay, who is Carmelo? He's a man that is in South Texas, took out another man in high school that confronted him underneath a tent. Rival, if I was a school captain such as Carmelo Anthony and I heard the opposites at my school property, boys gonna be boys. These boys are young men. He approached Carmelo Anthony and said, yo, you ain't supposed to be around here, my guy. And to justify, he pulls out a pocket knife? Stop the cap.
fact that the original judge has been recused is, I just characterize it as not that big a deal. The idea that the original judge who made all of these rulings and then made some post-trial statements would then be sitting to decide whether or not there's a new trial, I think hits most people as probably unfair. Doesn't mean he's going to get a new trial. I would argue that it's a very high bar for him to get a new trial here unless something surfaces that's very, very surprising. The grounds for a new trial here, I would adjudge as fairly weak. The allegation is that somehow or other, Carmelo Anthony was prevented from taking the stand.
He killed that boy in cold blood. Look at the facts. Like, you was asked to leave the tent multiple times before they even did anything to you or touched you. You should have left the tent. That was his first mistake right there. When you trying to prove self-defense by deadly force, you have to have taken every option to get out the situation. He had an option to get out the situation. He did not have to stay in the tent when he did that. Two, he had the nerve to say, touch me and see what happens. You see what I'm saying? Like, Carmelo knew he had a knife on him. You see what I'm saying? And boom, you argue, you getting into it with 3, 4 boys. You know they're gonna jump you. You know what I'm saying? So you egged him into fighting you, so you had a reason to stab him, and it didn't go his way. Like, it's levels to self-defense, and I feel like we need to start teaching.
100%. He had plenty of opportunities to move around, but stood he stood there talking about F around and find out and see what happens. If Carmelo Anthony had epilepsy, why are you entertaining the aggressor? Move around. And if you really feel some type of way, you could have told authorities, you could have told your head coach, you could have told anybody, but you decided to take matters on your own hand and you thought it was okay to have a 3.5 pocket knife on school property? And he gets the support talking about he's innocent. How? How many fights have occurred in high school? The most that's going to happen for the most part, both parties are going to be suspended. They're going to show up to school 2 to 3 days later, maybe a week later. Things calm down. They go to a alternative school, or they may be placed in suspension. This, that, and the third. But the point that I'm making that these boys still are alive. At the end of the day, Carmelo Anthony doesn't have that same chance because boys are going to be boys. They're going to make mistakes.
People what real self-defense is when it's coming to using deadly force. Now, when Austin hit him, that was his right to hit him back because you hit me back. Like, we're fighting with our fists. Austin should never touch the boy, period, though. But he didn't have to kill him. Like, his life was not in danger. You at a track meet. Your life is not in danger at a track meet. You was in a tent that wasn't your school tent. Yeah.
This dude was at a track meet. Why do you have a pocket knife at a track meet? So you're so scared for your life, right? But you got invited to this track meet. You wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So that's premeditation within itself. Then the narrative is, oh man, you have the right to defend yourself in the state of Texas. You do not have the right to bring a weapon on school property. Crazy
Yeah,
work.
it's like they was trying to bully you type shit. But that's when you was supposed to walk away and go about your business. You didn't have to stab him. I don't think Carmelo should have got 35 years though either. I felt like maybe if he
They're saying that he should be happy he got 35 years. They're also saying they was trying to give him life and they settled for 35. He wasn't apologetic. The parents wasn't apologetic. He came in the courtroom like he was the victim when he took somebody's life away. Imagine taking somebody's life away and having no remorse. Talking about, I was defending myself with a knife. You could have swung, but you had epilepsy, so you didn't want to be touched. So you pull out a knife, and they're not gonna have metal detectors in that type of neighborhood. He wasn't in the ghetto. It's not like he was in the trenches somewhere in the back alley of New York where there's no cameras, no witnesses. No, he was in open field at the bleachers at a track meet. The man could have ran away, reported Austin Metcalf saying, yo, this guy is provoking me. I'm about to flip out. I'm about to do something I'm going to regret. Please attend this dude. They're going to be like, yo, you're not even supposed to be here. But at least, once again, Carmelo would be alive. There's other ways to address the situation than violence. How is violence the answer? In high school, my guy. Now, in the real world, in the streets, it is what it is. But on school property, it's crazy work.
maybe 15 or 20 because he young. Like, yo, I don't think nobody under 21 should get 25 years plus or life in prison. I don't believe that at all. But
In the state of Texas, you are a adult as soon as you hit the age of 17. Now, you cannot buy alcohol until you're 21. That's some crazy work. But yeah, in the state of Texas down south, you are a adult at the age of 17. So he is going to TDC, Texas Directional Center. He's in there with the big boys, 35 years, and he was weighing what, a buck, 120 pounds. May the Most High be with Carmelo Anthony, man. 35 years is a long time weighing a buck, 130, 120.
Karmelo is not innocent. He is not a victim, and this has nothing to do with race. Now, granted, when it is black people, I feel like we do be more harshly.
Um, them white racists in prison gonna eat Carmelo Anthony up alive in prison. And can we really feel sorry for the guy? Because once again, he could have run away. He didn't have to provoke the situation. Even if Austin Metcalf was the aggressor, why did you think in your God-given brain that it was okay to pull out a knife? That is premeditation. You could have swung, you could have tricked him, you could have turned to Bruce Lee, you could have turned to Batman, you could have done anything. You could have thrown your backpack, even throwing your backpack would have been better than to pull out a 3.5 pocket knife. Also, ladies and gentlemen, even if he used a knife, he could have hit his leg, his arms. That would have shown not intent to do what he did. But when he aimed that 3.5 knife, that they wanted to call it a cleat sharpener, that's another lie that they was pushing. I never even heard of a cleat sharpener before, and they was talking about Carmelo was walking around with a cleat sharpener. What? Does that look like a cleat sharpener to you? No, that is a weapon. That is the evidence at hand, and that is a clear knife. Then they want to say that he was walking around from an object from shop because in high school you have shop to where you will things and make things this, that, and the third. So he was just walking around, so it's legal. Another lie, everything but self accountability. You know, you make your bed, you have to lie in it. Unfortunately, it's a hard lesson, but once again, it is not okay to bring no 3.5 pocket knife on school property. Stop the cap.
Judge and our punishment be worse against like a white person that probably did the same thing or similar. But Carmelo definitely do need to be in prison. He definitely killed.
A retrial for Carmelo Anthony is the worst thing to happen to this dude because now they're going to expose everything. Y'all should have took that 35 piece and ran with it. 35 years is a light sentence for what he did. But y'all are so fucking radical and stupid. Y'all are gonna open up this trial again and they might give this motherfucker 65 plus years. Cause now they're digging into everything. Now they're looking into why he had the knife anyway. And now it's being exposed that he threatened to stab and stalk his ex-girlfriend. Y'all are stupid at toxic levels. You motherfuckers don't understand the law for shit. If I was in Carmelo's corner, I would tell him to take that 35 to the head because they gave you a break. You are a murderer and they gave you 35 years with the potential to be released at like year 17 and a half. But you radical motherfuckers, you grifting motherfuckers, because you new lawyers, NAACP, Black Panthers, y'all are some fucking idiots as well because y'all set this boy up for failure by opening up this case again. Texas don't play that bullshit. They're gonna give y'all exactly what the fuck y'all want. Y'all want a new trial? Okay, here's another 35 years.
Yo, the man got a break with 35 years. They was trying to give him life. Now they reopen the case. Is he going to get a longer sentence? Let's go on with the content, though.
Now, since then, though, Judge Roast, he released this video shortly after that sentencing happened. Witnesses say it started all with an argument and confrontation over seating at a regional track meet in April of last year, ending with Anthony stabbing Metcalf in the chest with a pocket knife. Now, Anthony said he acted in self-defense, telling police, "I did it."
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
But this week, Anthony's new legal team is trying to undo that conviction as they move forward. Now, today they argued that Judge Roach shouldn't remain on the case, and they were successful there. The defense team challenged the judge's restrictions on public access to the trial back in June, saying it violated Anthony's civil rights. There were also a ton of protests outside the courthouse during that time, and questions about race, given there were no black jurors on the panel. Now, experts today say the defense has a very small win.
Okay, so we have to talk about the no black jurors on the panel. Um, so they actually interviewed black juries and they said they didn't have the heart to convict one of their own. Verbatim, that's what they said. So why would you put somebody of color in stand if they said they don't have the conviction to judge Carmelo Anthony the right judgment that he deserves? If you was in Carmelo Anthony's shoes, why would you want a wishy-washy jury to determine your fate? So that is another lie that they was pushing, talking about, oh man, how come there wasn't no black jurors in the jury? They try to put them boys in the jury and they said they cannot convict one of their own. And that's why whenever you hear stuff and see stuff, we have to do your own research and find out the truth for yourself. Just like the situation with Nolan Wells when they said that his throat was missing. When I first heard that, I was like, y'all capping, but true enough. His throat is missing. His higher bone was missing from his throat.
Window here as they move forward to ask the court for a new trial.
The court can still act within 75 days of the sentence. The carriage turns back into a pumpkin really on Monday.
Yeah, and now moving forward, a new judge is going to take over. And then the big question that we have to ask now is, will Carmelo Anthony get a shot at a new trial here? Now, the defense has a very limited window to make that case. And if they're ultimately unsuccessful at the end of the day, they could still appeal to the Texas Criminal Court of Appeals.
Today's hearing has already brought new, very revealing information about Anthony and Austin Metcalf. That was never brought up at trial, by the way. J.D. Miles has been in the courtroom through this day, and he has the new details.
Well, we expect the hearing today to wrap up at any moment and testimony to continue tomorrow. As many of you know, there was a private off-the-record agreement during the murder trial by both sides to keep the sordid backgrounds of Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, their character and their criminal history, private and out of view of the jury, so they could focus solely on what happened under the tent last year at that Frisco track meet. Now, both sides have decided to release that background history, with the defense going first, releasing 20 pages of Austin Metcalf's behavioral history. Carmelo Anthony was dressed in a suit and tie for this morning's hearing, which began with the defense arguing that efforts by the trial judge and prosecutors to combat threats and deal with disruptions actually prevented Anthony from getting an open and fair trial. But bombshell testimony came this afternoon from Anthony's trial attorney, Mike Howard, about Austin Metcalf's background report that was never presented to the jury. CBS News Texas has also learned new details about Austin Metcalf's background. Metcalf and his brother Hunter were once caught spray painting graffiti, including KKK Kill All Blacks and Heil Hitler.
Whoa, that's some crazy work. What? Whoa. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, Carmelo Anthony was carrying a pocket knife. So if he was so scared for his life, there should have been some discussions earlier with some teachers, with some parents. They should have had a conference to where they sat the boys in the room and said, yo, you are bullying Carmelo Anthony. Excuse me, you are bullying. Yes, that's his name, Carmelo Anthony. Excuse me, I got the boys confused. If Carmelo Anthony was so scared for his life, he should have had a conversation with the higher ups and be like, yo, this man is harassing me, but he took matters in his own hand. And ladies and gentlemen, it is okay to tell when your life is at stake. That doesn't make you a snitch. Maybe he felt like he was going to tell and he was going to be less of a man, but that doesn't make you less of a man. It's better for you to tell than for you to take matters in your own hand, because now your life is down the drain because you took matters on your own hand. See, there's ways to approach a situation besides violence. Violence shouldn't be the last resort. If he was in the street somewhere, it is what it is. But you're on school property, my guy.
Along with the N-word, and were sentenced to 12 months of juvenile probation. Records reveal they reportedly told authorities, we did some dumb stuff, we did some vandalism. There are several documented instances of Austin.
So Austin Metcalf, these boys got sent to juvenile for over 12 months for being racist. So they was plagiarizing and they was committing vandalism, putting KKK on buildings and being a weirdo. So they have a history. So I'm pretty sure they was being on that type of time when they approached Carmelo Anthony. Thus explains why he had the knife. Because I'm thinking, why do you even have a knife in the first place on school property? He probably is like, man, if I don't got this, it's either me or them. They was on that type of timing. Because I was just so confused. Why, as a high school student, are you having that on your personnel in the first place?
Using racial slurs in school. And in 2023, Austin was accused of bullying a black student in class. In 2018, while still in elementary school, Austin and his brother were accused of bullying and assaulting a female, which led to his arrest. During an argument in 2024 with another female student, Austin allegedly knocked her to the ground and punched her in the stomach. He was also kicked out of a
What?
football game and texted someone later.
Oh man, it's awesome, man. Hold on. What did he do to this girl? Hold on. He did what to his girl?
Austin and his brother were accused of bullying and assaulting a female, which led to his arrest. During an argument in 2024 with another female student, Austin allegedly knocked her to the ground and punched her in the stomach. He was also kicked out of a football game and texted someone later, "I was about to beat the expletive out of those kids." At a previous track meet, when another student alerted Austin that someone not on their team, quote, "behind our bench was talking wild," Austin reportedly replied, "Kill that MF." During the 2023-2024 school year, he received in-school suspension twice. School disciplinary records from April 2022 to May 2024 reveal that Austin reportedly called a teacher the B word and used profanity. He told a school official that he couldn't control it and wasn't aware that it was coming out of his mouth. In 20
So this man, Austin Metcalf, was on that type of time, and he was a demon walking on earth. Regardless of him being a weirdo and a racist and doing the unthinkable, he still didn't deserve to be stabbed in the heart like he was a vampire off of a scene from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I do understand that Austin Metcalf is a racist and he's once again a weirdo doing some weird ass stuff. Doesn't justify bringing a weapon to school. I understand Carmelo was terrified for his life, but if you're so terrified, you gotta talk to somebody. You need to go to, and then he went to that school that he wasn't supposed to even be at. He was suspended. So, what about that? Because I understand Austin Metcalf is a weirdo, but at the same time, why did you go to a school that you wasn't supposed to be at?
2024, on at least 5 occasions, Austin saw a counselor regarding his anger and rage during a football game. In 2021, he got banned from attending basketball games for a season after yelling profanity at a player. Metcalf.
Bro, this man, hold on, bro. This man, Austin Metcalf, got suspended from his basketball team because he was screaming racial slurs to the opposing team. Oh yeah, he definitely provoked Carmelo Anthony, but once again, Carmelo Anthony gives back the statement, F around and find out what happened. So they probably did say, yo, kill this ninja. They probably said some crazy stuff underneath that tent. Does that justify you pulling out a weapon? Absolutely not. You shouldn't have even had a weapon.
Also got suspended after he and another student were talking about bringing a gun to school the following day. Now, prosecutors, meanwhile, have a 75-page document on Carmelo Anthony's background, which they plan to present to the court tomorrow. In that report, they mention that Carmelo Anthony, on the morning before the stabbing, sent out a text saying he's low-key on the verge, which was a sign they say that he was easily triggered. Also, that his girlfriend had gone to their school principal and said that he had been stalking her and was asking for help. Again, all of this information is coming from extractions from cell phones, school records, and police reports.
By making some passing reference to like what Austin Metcalf liked to do or what Carmelo Anthony liked to do for fun. It's such a Hail Mary by the defense. But something big happened in court this morning when the prosecutor got up and did not deny that there was a gentleman's agreement to not go to the character place on either the accused, Carmelo Anthony, who stabbed and killed Austin Metcalf at a track meet for absolutely nothing. Austin told him he had to leave Austin's team's tent, and Carmelo Anthony instantly stabbed him.
So regardless of the argument, once again, deleting somebody does not justify whatever they was fighting about. Yes, was Austin Metcalf the aggressor? Absolutely. Was is he racist? 100%. We just found out the man was committing vandalism by spray painting KKK with spray paint. That man obviously is a racist. Carmelo Anthony thus carried a pocket knife to protect himself, but on school property, you do not have the legal right to carry a knife the same place where you are supposed to get an education. And all over social media, people are saying, well, down south in Texas, you have the right to defend yourself, especially with a 3.5 pocket knife or less. That is true, but let's add context. Where did this event take place? At a track meet. Who owns that track meet? Not the HOA, Homeowners Association, not your neighborhood, HOA. It was owned by school property. So that's on school grounds. Ladies and gentlemen, if you speed out of a school zone, that ticket is not as high compared to when you're speeding where there's a school zone. So when you are hitting a school zone, everything is magnified. That same speed limit that you go on 35, you go on 35 where it says 15 in the school zone, you're cooked. So getting caught up in a situation where you're defending yourself with a pocket knife is still bad, but on school property, oh my goodness. He should be happy he will even see the light of day, but now they're having a retrial. I think this is going to get even worse. In the beginning of this video, this man was talking about he's going to lick the blood on the knife after he's done. That's some crazy work. Who says that?
um, or Austin Metcalf. They both sides agreed we're not going to do character evidence on either the defendant or the decedent. And the prosecutor got up there and said, we did have such an agreement, but let me tell you.
Uh, Lord 7519 says, keep your hands to yourself. Never know how a person would respond. Absolutely. You have to keep your hands to yourself because you truly don't know what that next person is going to do. I agree. Still does not justify Austin passing away because who brings a knife to school? In that same statement, you should not put your hands on nobody. Two lessons that these boys have to learn, but unfortunately, one boy doesn't have the opportunity to wake up and see the light of day. Carmelo Anthony still is alive. Austin Metcalf is not. So, as a young man, we're going to learn lessons, but at least we get to wake up the next day and learn from our lessons. How is Austin Metcalf supposed to learn if he's no longer here?
What we would have introduced had we gone there. It would have been like, because now the defense is like, we should have been able to do that. If we're going to do that, we could have talked about what a bad person Austin Metcalf was. And he's like, how about Carmelo Anthony, the actual defendant? Here's what I had in my back pocket. He says, first of all, Carmelo Anthony's girlfriend, Valeria, would have testified that she went to school the morning of the stabbing, April 2nd, 2025, and she told school officials that she had broken up with Carmelo Anthony and that he was stalking her. So
we didn't know that, ladies and gentlemen, until they reopened his case. So now they talking about Carmelo Anthony was in his feelings because he just got broken up by his girl, and now he's being a weirdo. So let me know in the comment section, is this retrial going to benefit Carmelo or is it just going to make his image worse? Because it's exposing him from being a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, talking about he's going to lick the blood of the knife of what he's going to use. That's some crazy work. Imagine that being read in court.
happened that morning. 1 hour later, Austin Metcalf was dead, according to the prosecutor. Clearly painting a picture of this kid, so-called Carmelo Anthony, who was a hothead, who was angry that morning, in some level of emotional distress and turmoil already at the time he showed up at the track meet. That hair trigger he had. But here's the real headline. So first of all, he texted the girlfriend, I'm low-key on the verge. He texted her the morning of the stabbing. The verge of what? We're not sure exactly. However, the prosecutor says Anthony had a history of violence and that he wanted to stab someone. Quote, there is a text message where he fantasizes about stabbing someone and licking the blood off the the blade.
What? Bro, get this weirdo out. Bruh, you could be mad all you want, but man, this man was on some weirdo timing. He obviously needs some help and guidance. This man's gonna lick the blood off the blade. Bro, you're cooked. Now, once again, we understand that Austin Metcalf is a clear racist. The man spray painted vandalism KKK. He got suspended from his basketball team for saying racial slurs. He was suspended for 12 months, so he has a history as well. Does not justify him being deleted, being removed from this planet. Was he going to fight? Was he going to cause an altercation at that track meet? 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, especially with his history. Austin Metcalf was looking for trouble. Or that same take, I need to look at the actions of Carmelo Anthony. Why was you there when he was suspended? That's not even his school. And you know what people say? Oh, black folks can't sit down at a bleacher meet. They can't show up at bleachers. They can't sit down. How come black folks can show up at bleachers and sit down and enjoy the weather? Well, he wasn't supposed to be there. He was suspended. Why did you go? You go looking for trouble, F around, you will find it.
He said of Anthony, he was obsessed with starting fights, said the prosecutor, and he was prepared to prove that, revealing Anthony had previously been taken by his parents to a special program at LSU for kids who cannot keep their hands to themselves. He went on to say, let's see, there was one other thing suggesting that there was previous aggressive behavior and text messages about a knife in particular. That came out a little bit after. So all of this is deeply disturbing and would not have helped Carmelo Anthony at all, Arthur. So what do you make of it?
Well, first of all, this type of evidence usually only comes out if the defendant's going to testify. You can't unless it's absolutely relevant. Now, maybe the part about the girlfriend going that day, because that's relevant, right? That's within hours of this happening. That may have come out, but it didn't. And I mean, that's the thing. The difference between a jury and a judge at this point, you can let it all hang out. And Megan, I mean, I think Hail Mary is what the term used. I would say a miracle. In other words, they made a passing reference to him being.
The same ex-girlfriend, Valeria, who prosecutors say reported Carmelo Anthony to school officials for alleged stalking her after their breakup, is also the person who later wrote on TikTok when he was found guilty, "Hold your head high, my sweet boy." Quote. She continued, "You're not alone. We're fighting for you always." But you broke up with him though. I mean, you're allowed to break up with Buddy, but that's crazy how she still want to say something. So she still feels some type of way about Buddy. She continued, "You're not alone. We're fighting for you always." According to prosecutors, just 1 hour after Valera alleged report to school officials, Austin Metcalf was fatally stabbed.
Not a nice kid, but they really had a tremendous amount of ammunition. He kills the guy with a knife, and they have text messages of him dreaming of stabbing someone with a knife and then licking the blood off his blade. I mean, this case is not going anywhere.
Yes.
And it's a new judge, right? They wanted the judge recused. He wasn't going to be fair and impartial. Good. I'm happy. There's a new judge with a clean slate, and I'm sure this judge is going to be like, okay, I think everything went well at the trial.
Yes, exactly, because it seems like a no-brainer that, this Carmelo Anthony does not deserve a new trial. This is the new judge. They got rid of the old judge because he gave an interview to the press, Dave, and made all sorts of statements of like, "I think my ruling on allowing them to strike those black jurors was correct. I think the jury verdict was correct," and was saying a bunch of stuff that it's very rare that we see a judge give interviews like that. And the defense made the most of it and said, you need to recuse. He didn't recuse. He got bounced off of hearing these motions by an independent judge that they brought in to evaluate the motion. And now the judge has been bounced. But the new judge doesn't exactly seem like a softie, Dave.
That's what I'm afraid of, man. Scott Osage Red says, skated with 35 because they was trying to give him life. They settled for 35. Now that this retrial is happening, ladies and gentlemen, my fear is that he is going to get a longer sentence. Because statements talking about, "I'm going to lick the blood off the blade." Bro, what? If you had any sympathy, that is not showing sympathy when the jury is reading text message like that, because that just shows premeditation right there within itself. This man talking about he's gonna lick the blood off the knife like he's a vampire.
Lifelong Republican. They don't tend to be softies on the bench. He also was very well respected when he was on the bench. He only retired in 2020, and he's got some history of actually increasing sentences when they come back around before him. So I'm not sure.
Oh man, y'all just heard that. So people are praising that Carmelo is getting a new judge, but now this new judge seems like he is not playing any games. And he's going to make an example of Carmelo Anthony. So hold your horses talking about justice for Carmelo Anthony. This may be worse.
They're going to like the new judge any more than they like the old judge. What do you make of all this breaking news?
Also, that's why I'm making this live. You have content creators making videos talking about the past of Austin Metcalf, that he's a racist, this, that, and the third, which I understand still does not justify you bringing a weapon on school property. How is that okay? Then they want to lie and say that it wasn't a pocket knife, ladies and gentlemen. They want to talk about it was a cleat sharpener. It was something that he used in shop in high school, and it's legal to, he was going from class to class. He was no, that's a lie. He was at a track meet underneath a tent. He could have ran backwards. He could have run left, right. There you see the ambulance. Like, bruh, not only is Austin Metcalf no longer here, even though he's a racist still deserves to have his rightful life to be coherent, to be existent. A racist doesn't mean that he needs to die. I mean, who makes us perfect as if we was perfect our entire lives? Now, I've never been racist, but all sin is equal. So he could have had the opportunity, if he was a racist, to be suspended, to be expelled, to go to a alternative school, to change his directions. And if he didn't, he would have kept on being in the jail system, this, that, and the third. Consequences would be done. But for Austin Metcalf to be deleted because of somebody say so is absolutely wrong. No justification, bruh. Only justification if these boys was in the street, not a school property.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Factor.
Be careful what you wish for. You got the new judge, same as the old judge, right? It's this guy's gonna be very tough. I do think it was the right decision to bounce the old judge, because he did give a press interview where he said that he thought the jury got it right with the guilty verdict. Okay, well, the standard is whether it creates a reasonable expectation of bias or an appearance of partiality. And yeah, when you're asking for a new trial, when the judge has already prejudged it, it's good to get a new judge, and that's good for appeal, so they can't keep this going on any longer, because the evidence is overwhelming against Carmelo Anthony. And when they say, well, we had a deal with the prosecutors not to put on evidence about the character of Carmelo Anthony, all this other stuff, and then that's why we didn't put on our client, Carmelo Anthony, because if we had, then the prosecutors say they were going to go after him for character. Well, now we know the real reason why they didn't put Carmelo Anthony on the stand. It wasn't because of a deal with prosecutors. Yes. It's because they had some smoking gun evidence about his text and his fight with his girlfriend.
For the first time since World War II, our national debt has exceeded the gross domestic product. America's reckless government spending keeps catching up with us. Higher inflation, higher prices, higher cost of living expenses, and higher.
Did you think you had ample time to talk to your lawyers about that and got feedback from them, feedback from your family? You have had enough time to make that decision. Anthony replied, yes, sir, we did.
What was your reaction to seeing this affidavit?
I was surprised, I was disappointed, and frankly, a little confused. I mean, I was there for every minute of the trial, and Bill Wersky and our prosecution team, they conducted this case so fairly and cleanly and professionally.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Megan, this is so clear they wanted a door number 3, and there was no door number 3. And that happens a lot. I mean, he wanted a door where he could testify and none of this evidence would come in. That's not possible. No matter how you spin it, no matter how many gentlemen's agreements you have, how you try to wiggle it, if he took the stand, this evidence was going to come in, and this evidence was going to sink him. And that's why he didn't take the stand. And I guarantee you, they didn't have 10 minutes to talk about this. I guarantee you, they've been talking about this for a year, because the first thing you do, if you're a defense lawyer, is you're going to look at this and you're going to say, oh my God, my client has made statements like this, has made threats with a knife. I mean, he had a prior school incident, where he had been quasi suspended from school. I mean, he had been taken to, this treatment facility, I guess, for kids who couldn't keep their hands to themselves. I mean, all of these things are things that would come up if Karmelo Anthony took the stand. And any defense lawyer would know that there's a huge risk that's going to come out, and it's going to be highly relevant. And they wanted a door number 3, and there was no door number 3. So they had to make a choice. They don't like that choice, and now they're trying to go back because they want to try again with another choice. And that's not how it works.
Just a little bit more from that first report that I was reading about what happened in court came from the Daily Mail. This is from CBS Texas, and their reporting is similar, but adds a little bit of a new element where they say the morning. This is from the prosecutor, Bill Worski. He said, a lot of people have asked why Karmelo Anthony took a knife to a track meet. Those reasons were captured in our 404 motion about allowing in prior bad acts by the defendant. The morning of the stabbing, his ex-girlfriend goes to an assistant principal saying she broke up with Karmelo and he was stalking her. There's an Anthony text message saying, I'm on the verge, the morning before the stabbing, and emphasized, and that he emphasized something. It's disjointed, this report. But then this reporter says he also threatened her with a knife. He threatened the girlfriend with a knife in one message and told her in another, when I stab someone, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. So it seems like he might have made a specific threat to the girlfriend, which is why she's in reporting it to the principal.
Yeah. And Megan,
What a weirdo. When you stab somebody, you want to do what? You're going to lift the blood off the blade. Yo, my fear, once again, this new judge that people are praising, talking about justice for Karmelo Anthony, he apparently is 10 times worse. Now, this man is getting 35 years. Potentially, he can get more time. They was trying to give him life. They settled for 35. Now, the judge is replaced. Are they going to raise the sentence? Talking about, I'm going to lick the blood off the knife, bro. This ain't no peanut butter.
This case, honestly, and I know you kind of agree, this was a no-brainer, right? I mean, he stabs this kid in the chest for basically no reason, and all this, and none of us are happy when a young person like Karmelo Anthony is now going to spend basically his life in prison, but it makes you feel more comfortable about what really happened here. Yeah. I mean, and this stuff, if you testify, I don't care about gentlemen. There's no gentleman's agreement. There's
what is that?
If a defendant testifies, there's what that. I mean, look, this is a different location than Manhattan or in Brooklyn where I practice, but it's the rules of evidence. And if I'm the prosecutor, I'm going to do everything I can to get that in. I'm going to bust my butt to argue to the judge, why is this relevant? It has to go to his mindset that day. This isn't from 5 years ago. This is right there and then. The girlfriend, her fear is so heightened that she's reporting it to authorities. That is something, if I'm a juror, I want to know that this kid on that particular day, he had hate in his heart. I mean,
he was itching for a fight, and more than just a fight. I mean, a murder. And Sarah Fields, who's been doing great reporting on this, she reports, my multiple sources have been telling me there is so much more about Karmelo Anthony behavior, texts on his phone that go back for years. I mean, Dave, we need to see this because the Austin Metcalf's family is still being harassed by these lunatics down there who think somehow their dead son is to blame for going over to Karmelo Anthony and saying, you need to leave this tent. This is for our team.
Yeah, by the fact that they've made so much noise and are claiming that they didn't get a fair shake and they need a new judge, it does open the door for all this stuff to come out, at least in the court of public opinion, because to think that this was somehow self-defense. Now we know why he brought the knife to the track meet, and we know it's not self-defense. This was not a spontaneous act. This was a guy who was a ticking time bomb, and they had a...
You cannot bring no knife to no track meet. Like, bruh. And at first, I was like, man, that doesn't make sense. Why would you even have a knife in the first place? Well, he was scared for his life. That's why he had it on his personnel. Then people are so nasty to say, well, at least he didn't end up like Nolan Wells. If Nolan Wells would have had a knife, maybe he would still be alive. Can y'all believe the trash they be pushing out? Now Nolan Wells is completely different compared to Carmelo Anthony, two different cases. But people, all they see is skin color. All they see is race. They don't see the context. Oh man, no self accountability when it comes to a minority bringing a knife to school. Oh, he has the right to defend himself. Stop the cap.
Scrap, a disagreement, and at worst it should have been like a pushing fight, which it was. Instead, he brought a knife into it, and so there is no sympathy for him. Arthur is right. We don't want to see young people go to prison for life, but he took the life of another person and destroyed a family, and now that family is also being dragged through the mud. So it's important for the truth to come out.
A young African-American male acting under the pretext of self-defense, according to his defense attorney, was convicted of murder. The 17-year-old, now Judge Roach, who presided over the Texas teenager's murder conviction, was removed on Wednesday ahead of a key hearing to decide whether to grant a retrial in the fatal stabbing of a 17-year-old athlete at a high school track meet. Jurors this summer had rejected Anthony's claims of self-defense during a confrontation with Metcalf at a stadium by the bleachers last year. Anthony did not testify during the trial. Other students who took the stand described the heated exchange over Anthony's refusal on a rainy day to leave a tent that, according to prosecutors, belonged to Metcalf's team. The case attracted national attention, as you know, in part because of a flood of social media posts that amplified the killing in racial terms. Anthony is black. Metcalf is white. Lawyers on both sides, however, told jurors the tragedy had nothing to do with race. Anthony's legal team has argued that a retrial is needed, in part because Judge Roach enforced strict courtroom rules that they say limited the public's access to the proceedings. They also zeroed in on comments that Roach gave to a Dallas television station after the trial ended. The interview at the center of Wednesday's hearing came days after Anthony was convicted by a jury that had no black jury members. That was June 9th. During the interview, the judge described Anthony as a, quote, nice young man who committed a crime, end quote, and said Anthony now, quote, understands today more than any day, before today, the consequences of committing a crime as he did, end quote. Another quote, as long as I follow the law, I sleep well at night, end quote. The judge told WFAA in the interview, which was played as Wednesday's hearing began. Judge Roach was asked if the jury got it right. Quote, yeah, they did, end quote. Roach said, adding, quote, whatever they say, they got it right, end quote. During the interview, the judge also defended his courtroom rules and spoke about the onslaught of online postings about the case. Roach also defended his conduct during the trial and the restrictions he placed on the proceedings, including not allowing cameras inside of the courtroom. Anthony's attorneys have argued that the restrictions violated Anthony's constitutional right to a public trial. Quote, I know I made people mad, but I'm not here to make them happy, Roach said. Anthony's attorneys argued those public comments were enough to require Roach's recusal. All right, so let's make this as plain as possible. When you're on trial, you have a few rights. Obviously, you have the right to address accusations made. You have a right to interrogate witnesses that are against you. This is how it is set in a trial. Your attorneys would do the interrogation, but these are your rights that they are expressing on your behalf. You also have a right to a trial of your peers. You have a right to present evidence on your behalf. You have a right to the trial being publicly scrutinized so that judges and courtrooms do not start to privatize justice. You have these rights in a public and transparent way every time. Now, this judge decided to restrict some of those said rights, especially the right of public scrutiny, which comes by way of media. The media, they have to file a particular requirement in order to get access to the courts. This is common. It's a protocol that we all follow. This judge decided to disallow that protocol, which, by the way, the protocol exists as a right of the defendant. That's why the protocol exists in the first place. The judge's judicial ethical case. So Judge Roach previously has faced disciplinary action as a judge. So in 2018, a special court of review examined the judge's involvement in a book and business that he created with his wife. Her name is Laura, a family law attorney. The couple co-wrote a book called Divorce in Peace, a 2016 book that encouraged couples to consider alternatives to traditional divorce litigation, including mediation and other forms of dispute resolution. The book promoted the idea of avoiding costly and contentious courtroom battles and included information drawn from Roach's experiences as a judge who presided over thousands of divorce cases. Roach and his wife also created Divorce in Peace LLC, a for-profit company. This is an online referral service connected to the book. So the Texas State Commission on Judicial Conduct found that Judge Roach did in fact violate judicial conduct rules by using the prestige of his office and his position as a judge to further the private interest of himself and his wife. The disciplinary proceedings specifically focused on promotional materials, videos, and other activities connected to the Divorce in Peace project. The court also found that the judge's business dealings could involve him in matters that actually came before his courtroom. That disciplinary case, interestingly, is separate from Anthony's current case and was not the basis for Harley's decision to recuse Coach. I'm going to get into that. Now, what do we have so far? Here we go. You have a judge who profiteered off of public office or public service. That's a no-no. Typically, you have to go if you do that. If you are an employee and you profiteer off of your public service, you leave that position because your position is undergirded by the taxpayer. So you took a taxpayer job, created a for-profit company, utilized your current ongoing experience in said taxpayer job to make money for you and your wife. He goes through a disciplinary process, which he has the right to do, and he's found liable. There's more. Put it up full mass. Now here we go. Visiting Judge Sid Harley said he did not know Judge Roach, and he believed Judge Roach would be fair in a hearing for a retrial, but granted the defense's request for recusal because of how it may look to others. In his written order, the judge said the evidence was such that the judge's, quote, impartiality may reasonably be questioned, end quote. And another judge to, quote, preside over all further proceedings, end quote. Now, why is this part important? This part is important because the same judge that oversaw the guilty conviction and created the courtroom dynamics that are in question today is the same judge that normally would have to make a decision as to your motion for a retrial in the first place. Seems kind of antithetical to progress. But once that same judge denies your motion, typically they will, you then have another remedy. Well, in this case, this judge will not get the opportunity to do so, okay? That judge has been removed. Now, put it up full mass. We have now Judge Michael Chitty was later assigned to the case. The next hearing took place today where Anthony's attorneys will presented arguments in support of their motion for a new trial. Anthony's lead defense attorney, Russell Wilson, said he's trying to finish the hearing today. Judge Chitty said both sides can take their time and the hearing may continue into Friday. The defense opening statements. So Russell Wilson, a defense attorney for Karmelo Anthony, claimed there were constitutional violations in the initial trial that ended in a conviction. Wilson said Collin County Judge John Roach ran what he calls, quote, a shadow docket, end quote. Wilson argued the threshold for a new trial was reached. The defense said they have 12 witnesses in their motion for a new trial and more than 40 evidentiary exhibits. Wilson argued that audio should have been allowed at trial and claimed Anthony's supporters were denied access to the trial. Wilson claims at least one person was fired for supporting Anthony. Now, some of these claims are not judicially relevant. I'm going to give you that in the upfront. Some of these claims are. During the trial, if you remember, we talked about when the defense makes an objection. That part is important because anytime the defense said, objection, Your Honor, that defense attorney preserved the record so that it can be an issue for an appeal. This is how you preserve the record for a new trial or for a retrial. This also allows for the public to understand what happened and what did not happen. Some of these things we will be hearing for the first time because they were not allowed or it was not allowed for public scrutiny at the time that the motion or the judge decided what would happen in that particular case. We didn't know. many of these elements prior. Now we will. So I think some of this is for judicial fodder and some of it is for the public scrutiny. But the bottom line is whatever was denied as a right or an access or a remedy for their client that did in fact have a meaningful outcome for Anthony, that is preserved by way of objection for the record for an appeal. So we shall see what happens, hopefully by Friday, if not before.
So we just wrapped up the first day for the motion for a new trial. So how do you think it went?
It's mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Everything we've noticed a lot of things about the boys that wasn't sent out to the public. You agree?
Mm-hmm.
Based on what was told, the narrative, it hurt us, man. It just made us. It's right now. I'm still. It was so much at that time.
Yeah. It was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. Damn, the dude had a penchant for fighting, for violence.
Yes.
Very
Never
violent.
put out there.
Yeah, like smacking on his friends or so-called friends, smacking on
wordings he was using,
choking his own mama.
Yeah, that threw me off.
Know?
I mean, your mama. I said, man, you got to be different.
Threatening to slap his dad.
Whoa. Hold on. Now, still, these traits does not justify him being deleted from this world, but I didn't know he was choking out his own mama. Yo, Austin Metcalf is choking out his own mama. It's crazy work.
He don't do nothing. This kid right here, like he was a real problem. When I heard all that stuff, I'm talking about a treasure trove of incidents captured on his phone. It ain't like this is not third-hand knowledge. This is him recording himself.
Oh yeah, Carmelo was scared for his life for sure. If the man could give two F's about his own mama that he wants to choke her out and do disrespectful actions to his parents, then yeah, he could give two F's about Carmelo Anthony.
In most cases, passing along text messages.
Yes, and it was very shocking. Like I said, right now, it's so much to take in because it's like, man, what? Yeah. I mean, somebody to do that, and how that picture was painted, like it was the perfect angel. I'm just still, like I said, I'm gonna shock this to mama.
Yeah.
And you took your mama.
Yeah. Kayla, how hard was it to hear them in there talking, the prosecutor, Worski, speaking publicly about your son, saying things that you know that are not true?
It was very hard. It was very hard.
Yeah.
It was very hard.
Yeah. So, and as a father, I saw your reaction many times. And you were it was like you wanted to say something. How hard was it not to say something?
Man, it's hard, man. God is real. That's what I can tell you, man. It was hard.
Yeah.
Based on the temperature we have right now, with like I said, it's like, man, the things that was revealed, the mindset of these kids, of them, that's what they do.
Yeah.
My kid could have been another.
Right.
That's what hurts more than anything. Man,
Yo, I was talking this whole time and y'all didn't hear me. That's some crazy work. I was on mute. Yeah, so my take was this man, Carmelo Anthony, before he committed the action of taking away Carmelo Anthony's life, he said in a text that he was going to lick the blood, the same blood that he used to take out Austin Metcalf. Now, obviously, he was scared for his life. That's why he had the knife in the first place. But these boys have a history. Both these boys are wrong, but two wrongs don't make a right. If you was really scared for your life, you should have spoken to somebody like your coach, somebody of higher up. You can't just take matters to your own hand. And now you have 35 years to decide it was that right. Yeah, you're alive, but at what stake? You could have went to another direction, left, right, up, down. Could have ran out the bleachers, but you stayed. Then you had epilepsy. You know you can't be touched. If you have epilepsy, why are you entertaining the situation?
As a black father, well, how can you have a conversation with your son?
The conversation you should have had with your son is like, son, if you have a condition and you feel like your life is in jeopardy, instead of fighting, run to the nearest authority figure. Now, if you're in a back alley somewhere at a bar, you go to the restroom and they close the door behind you and they turn off the lights, you have to defend yourself. It is what it is, and the court will put that into context. But that's not the case. This was not at a bar. This wasn't at a restaurant where the door was closed behind them and they turn off the lights. This man was at a track meet, school property. Then you want to give out a statement, F around and find out why did you say that statement? That's premeditation. You can't say statements like that and do that action. That's premeditation all day. And then once again, he should be happy he only got 35 years, especially in Texas, down south. They was trying to give him life, and now they're trying to reopen the case to do what? Because at the end of the day, Austin Metcalf is gone. And how was he deleted? Because Carmelo Anthony decided to take matters into his own hand. If you was so scared for your life, run away to the coach. Does that make you any less of a man if you have epilepsy? So you have epilepsy. That's what these people are saying. That, oh man, he can't be touched because he had epilepsy. What kind of excuse is that? If you can't be touched, run away, my guy. Especially if he wasn't supposed to be there.
What can you really tell your son?
Yeah. Your new attorneys,
Remarkable.
led by Russell Wilson, knocked it out the park.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
knocked it out the park.
Yes.
How satisfied is it to know that you have the type of representation that you have?
I mean, it's a blessing.
Yes, yes.
It really is a blessing.
Being God is real. Like I tell them, man, y'all heaven sent. Man, we was a family that was lied. We was thinking about they lied on us. We bought cars. We spent the money. We did all this thing. And think about it, they doing the same thing in Oakland.
Yeah.
Attack their job. It's if people don't see this is it's like they have a playbook.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was going on. All right, it's the play, and everybody know. I got a famous lady telling me this. Titi, I call her Titi. Titi said, "Man, they know how to stay on. They know how to stay on task. They know. They stay on code.
Right.
They stay on code like that. The same things happen. That's happening with Noah. Same thing. They went to their jobs. They lied about them, saying they blow the money. They this and that. Like, wow.
How do you navigate through those insults and lies? Like people saying all these untruths. People just saying things that you know to be a flat out lie. How do you navigate through that and try to maintain some sense of sanity? When you want to just explode.
Man, talking to God, this woman here, me and her, we vent. Like I said, I feel like what the Lil Mo used to say there, I cry, you cry. Man, we grew more than anything. Like, so we lean on each other right now. I lean on family.
Yeah.
It's a very hard. It's just hard period.
Yeah.
Like it's both sides. It's definitely, but it's hard. Like I said, even with the lies. I mean, we was lied on.
Mm-hmm.
We was lied on, and it's just like like I said, it's the same play. It was the same play, and if people don't see the play, is that telling you we can't win for losing?
Right.
Like you think about it, it was the exact same play. They went after their family, went after their jobs, said they purchased it. They said we did it too. We can't.
In court today, in the facts against Austin and Hunter, it's not some alleged. It's factual. It was submitted to court. It was there during the beginning of the trial. It was accepted by Judge Roach as a factual document. The evidence, there are a number of documents supporting all of that, videos, all of those things. We knew that before June. I cannot speak to the fact of why it wasn't displayed in that trial. At the end of the day, the only person that can speak to that is Mike Howard and Toby Shook, right? And at the end of the day, I'm not going to justify the actions. I'm just going to say that the Next Generation Action Network and these coalition of attorneys stay committed towards making sure that the facts are here regarding this case. You heard it displayed today. And I ask that everyone join us tomorrow as we continue a third day of this long journey of being able to fight for a new trial for Karmelo Sincere Anthony. Anything else, I'll open it for just brief questions, but I ain't gonna take too many. Can't answer that. I can't speak for attorneys' legal matters. Any other questions? Correct. I've always disagreed with him on that approach. At the end of the day, you cannot, it's crazy how, and I say this respectfully, but I really don't care what no one think of it. Telling black folks to turn the temperature down when we're getting discriminated against is just problematic. And it shows that we have not gotten anywhere when it comes to race relations in this country. We deal with this type of racism and yet bigotry that continue to be displayed in America, right? And so telling us to let's pipe the temperature down when we're only responding to it. It's kind of like this term of race baiting that has been created, right? I don't know about the race, but I feel like the bait, right? And so the reality is what we saw in the evidence today was years worth of racism and bigotry, right? And that's displayed, and it speaks for itself, and I don't want to characterize on it. But in regards to their approach to the case, I did not agree with it. Anything? I don't want to respond to that in regards to, because that goes dive into the case. But I think that everything in this trial should have been displayed. That's right. And I think that the jury was owed everything to come to the facts, right? And I want to say this real quick because, and I don't speak for the attorneys of this, there was a characterization of 75 pages, right? I've been able to see those things. And if you take a screenshot on 75 page and you put that on the one page and you make all of those things about 50 some documents, it becomes a long document, right? At the end of the day, what you have is more than 30 or 50 full pages of things against Austin and Hunter Metcalf, right? And I ask that when everything comes to light, that people really know the facts about what this case is. Thank y'all, man. I'm going to end it right here.
Yes, sir. You heard that? Justice! Justice! Now! When do we want it? What do we want?
And to have trial that the public can watch as a constitutional right, just to make sure that things are done fairly and that people that are concerned about their community can hear what's going on.
Anthony's former trial defense attorney, Mike Howard, took the stand. Much of Thursday's testimony centered on a gentleman's agreement between the prosecution and defense to keep damaging character evidence about both Anthony and his victim out of the courtroom. Part of the evidence shared in court Thursday suggested aggressive and racist behavior from Austin Metcalf, with Anthony's attorney saying they could have brought up school records if it weren't for the agreement. It also revealed additional damaging information about Anthony, including a reported obsession with knives and a girlfriend who previously reported stalking behavior. Again, this evidence was not heard by the jury, as the prosecution and defense argued to, quote, not open the door and keep the trial limited to the evidence, quote, under the tent, meaning the day of the track meet. But there was a disagreement between both sides over whether this included potential testimony from Anthony himself. It led to a heated argument and yelling between the attorneys. And after this, Anthony decided not to testify, a decision Howard believes crippled his self-defense claim. It was acknowledged in court today that a verbal agreement like this takes a lot of trust between attorneys, and it is not typical in trials. However, it was done in part because of the immense attention nationally and internationally that this case has gained, and in an effort to make sure that potential jurors weren't influenced by outside information before hearing evidence. Court will resume tomorrow at 9 a.m. Toby Shook, Anthony's other trial defense attorney, is expected to take the stand.
Today, in an attempt to get a new murder trial. Anthony, of course, was convicted of murdering 17-year-old Austin Metcalf by stabbing him during a track meet in April 2025. He was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Today, a Texas judge ruled in favor of a defense motion to recuse trial judge John Roach from overseeing the appeals process. The defense has accused Judge Roach of not being impartial during the Anthony trial. They point to an interview he gave in June where Roach said he believed the trial was fair and defended the dismissal of 3 black prospective jurors. The defense played the entire 18-minute interview for the courtroom, and that included this key moment.
Did the jury get it right?
Yeah, they did. You know why? Because they were picked based upon the law. They listened to the facts that happened here in this very courtroom, and they got a verdict. And so that's the process. And
Retired District Judge Michael Chitty has now been assigned to preside over the appeal. Outside the courtroom, dozens of Karmelo supporters, including one man in a full Black Panther uniform. And minutes after the recusal, they broke out in loud cheers. Now all eyes turn to tomorrow, when we could hear brand new facts and testimony that were not previously made public, as Anthony's defense seeks a retrial. Joining me now, Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, and criminal defense attorney Todd Shapiro, who was also inside that courtroom today. Todd, Jeff, good to see you both. Thank you.
Good to see you again, Will.
Jeff, let's go inside the courtroom. How did you feel today when you heard that Judge Roach had been recused?
It really didn't faze me. It's just another part of the procedure. It's a normal step. It doesn't change the facts of the case. So to me, I don't care which judge presides over the proceedings because it doesn't change the facts.
But why, Todd? Why was Judge Roach recused?
Well, I think, Will, that the judge that was appointed to hear the motion to recuse felt like the interview itself may have given rise to an air of impropriety. It looks like he had already made a judgment. Judge was not going to be impartial throughout the appeals process. And I think in an abundance of caution, at least in my opinion, that the presiding judge decided Roach should be removed from the proceeding going forward because they didn't want another issue to come up on an appeal.
But based upon that 18-minute interview he gave to local news, wherein he said he thought that the jury got it right, he said that, though, because he said he thought the jury based it upon the facts and the jury was properly selected. It did not sound like he was giving his opinion on the verdict, but rather on the process of the trial. So how does that make an impartial judge?
I will tell you, I tend to agree with you, but saying the phrase, they got it right, could absolutely lead someone to believe that he thinks that Karmelo got what he deserved. And the problem that happened here is it was 2 days after the appeal was filed. It was just days after the end of the trial. And he was still had jurisdictional control over the next steps in the trial. And by making those public comments, I believe that the presiding judge just thought it was too much and it would be best to move in a different direction.
Okay, Jeff says it doesn't matter because the facts don't change. First, one more as to what you saw unfold today. What did you think when you saw everybody celebrating, I believe in your words, like they won the Super Bowl?
I mean, they can celebrate. If they want to consider it a win for their side, that's okay. I mean, the conviction is what I'm most concerned with, not a recusal of a judge. My main focus right now is the Austin Metcalf Foundation, and that's based on saving lives. And that's based on not having another parent be put in the position that I'm in or the Anthonys are put in. It hasn't been easy for either side, and the publicity that this case has generated is above normal. I mean, this is a nationwide, even some worldwide news in some places. But as far as what happened today, it's just one step in a long journey. And it doesn't really change the facts. There's no new evidence. It's just one step that says, okay, we're going to take this judge out and find a different judge.
Jeff, you and I have had several conversations together, gotten to know each other a little bit. I know that looking forward is a big part of where you want to be now, where your family wants to focus, the Austin Metcalf Foundation, honoring Austin's memory. But I also know that justice is important to you and that this case doesn't fade into the rearview mirror or come out with an unjust outcome. When you look to tomorrow and the potential for a new trial, what do you think about that? What could you hear tomorrow? What could, in your words, change the facts and change the outcome for Karmelo Anthony?
Well, I mean, that's a speculative answer. So, I mean, I don't deal with a lot of what ifs. I deal with a lot of what is. So what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is a decision if he gets a new trial or not. And we'll go from there. If he gets one, great. The facts are still the same. We had 35 witnesses. If we need to call 35, we will. He brought a knife to a track meet. Not supposed to. Went to a tent where he didn't belong. Was asked to leave over 15 times. Got pushed in the shoulder and immediately stabbed someone in the chest and killed my son. That's it in a nutshell. We can try to paint it whatever color you want to paint it. It's not going to change the facts. No matter what judge is presiding, no matter what lawyer is presenting the case, The facts are the facts.
And to that point, Todd, then the defense is looking for a new trial based upon what I can ascertain is two reasons. They want more access to the courtroom, presumably for supporters of Karmelo Anthony, and they want more background information, as laid out in these hearings, on Austin and Karmelo. Is any of this enough to get a new trial? To Jeff's point, one thing that is clear is we have the facts.
We do have the facts, and I would assume that something explosive, a bombshell of some sort, has to be introduced from the defense standpoint to say, look, this would have made this trial patently different had it been in evidence. Whatever reason why it wasn't should be course corrected, and now let's go back to the trial court so it can all be fully presented, which seems like a strange argument considering 30 or 60 days ago you had the green box, you had the lawyers, you had everybody prepared, so why was that evidence not brought up in the first trial? And it's got to be something substantial. It can't just be, I don't like the way that Roach, talked to me during the trial. That's not enough to get a new trial. There's got to be a structurally legal argument to be able to get a new trial. And then again, as Mr. Metcalf said, even if the judge does rule that there's a new trial, they still have to deal with the same facts. Still got to deal with the same evidence.
So, Jeff, I'll ask you this last question at the risk of being speculative once again, or asking you to be speculative. What would it mean for you and for your family if, in fact, there was a new trial granted, to go through all of this again?
Truthfully, Will, it's been the hardest thing I've ever had to go through in my life. Just losing my son. Alone, just that alone. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to endure. And I will tell you, there's no pain that a parent will ever feel that's deeper than this. So I wish this would never happen to anyone. I don't know. I know there's nothing I could have done different, but when you send your kid to school, you expect them to come home alive. Mine didn't. So how do we prevent this? How do we keep this from happening again? And that's, once again, that's the main reason I started the Austin Metcalf Foundation, is to be able to educate about conflict resolution.
Rest in peace to Austin Metcalf. On that same take, how do you prevent this from happening again? You tell your son to keep his hands to himself. I understand the boy, Karmelo Anthony, had no business being there, but you should never put your hands on the next person. And when you do that, expect for a retaliation. Now, the retaliation that was received doesn't justify what happened, but that's how you stop it from happening. Also, how you stop it from happening, you have a talk with your son to not be a fucking racist. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So if Austin Metcalf, rest in peace, was a racist, I'm pretty sure the father was a racist as well. And he just talking good to make it sound sweet. Once again, doesn't justify the man not being here. We understand that he was spreading KKK, spreading vandalism, spreading hate. He even was choking out his own mother, Austin Metcalf. That's some crazy work. Still doesn't justify him being deleted from this world. But how do we prevent this from happening again? Have conversations with your offspring, telling them to keep them hands to yourself.
De-escalation, impulse control, not only for young adults, even parents. Because in today's world, with the moral decay of society, I've said before, teachers' job is to teach you, English, math, geography, social studies. They're not there to teach you morals, values. That's your parents' job, and it starts at home. And that's the biggest thing I see in today's world. One, there's not as many fathers in the household, and that contributes, I think, because you're looking at a single family that has to work and try to maintain raising a child. But some of the parents and some of the children aren't equipped with the skill sets to handle these split-second decisions that can put you in prison for a long time or put you in the cemetery.
Well, Jeff, here's to hoping that you can focus on the Austin Metcalf Foundation going forward and you don't have to relive this trial once again. We'll find out tomorrow. We'll begin the process of finding out tomorrow in the possible retrial of Karmelo Anthony. Jeff Metcalf, our thoughts and prayers are always with you.
Yeah, so I mean, that's definitely interesting. Keyshawn, it looks like you're on mute right now. But yeah, no, I mean, definitely a crazy story. I know this has obviously been not only huge headlines here in the state of Texas, but also nationally as well. Mm-hmm. So Yeah, so I know earlier today we had a chance to talk with an attorney who kind of added a little bit more context to the story. So we're going to go ahead and take a listen to that. And joining us on the Factor Uncensored Primetime Live, we have criminal defense attorney Bayoji Akimbola. And Bayoji, this morning, attorneys for Karmelo Anthony, they succeeded in a case up in Collin County to get the judge removed from all appeals in this case. What does this mean? What does this update mean in this?
Yes. So Carmelo Anthony retained some new lawyers. The person who's heading the charge, his name is Russell Wilson. And what Russell Wilson is attempting to do is have what's called a motion for new trial granted. The issue, though, is he's going before the judge who decided the original case. And there's a concern that if we're going before the same judge who decided the original case, is he going to give Carmelo Anthony a fair shot at deciding whether or not there's sufficient grounds for a motion for new trial? And in his motion for recusal of getting the original deciding judge, Judge Roche, off of the case, he's stating he is not going to give us a fair shot. And the reason he's not going to give us a fair shot is that he has done several public interviews since the original trial, the judge, Judge Roche. And in those public interviews, Judge Roche essentially said the jury got it right. And so he's pretty much already has presented publicly that I have made my mind up about this case. Nothing was wrong about this trial. And by him saying that out loud publicly, the jury got it right, it's going to be very difficult for him to make the argument that I can, in fact, keep an open mind on why a motion for new trial should be granted. And so the visiting judge said we agree with that assessment. And because of those public statements, we don't think he can be fair and impartial in deciding whether or not a new trial should be granted. So we're going to remove him from making that decision and invite a visiting judge to hear the matter, which I believe is happening tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. So does a recusal also automatically mean a new trial?
No, a recusal does not mean a new trial. A recusal simply means that there's going to be a new judge considering the issue of whether or not a motion for new trial should be granted. And so there's supposed to be another visiting judge coming in tomorrow to hear on that matter. And that visiting judge, who has a fresh set of eyes, was not involved in the original trial case, will make the decision as to whether or not a motion for new trial should be granted.
So,
Yeah,
but
I was going to say, and for a lot of people, if people are living underneath of a rock right now, so the background when it comes to the story is we know that Carmelo Anthony, he was found guilty of murder this past June, fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf back in April of 2025. So the big thing with this case, and the one question I have for you too is, let's be real, this case has been something that has been all over the headlines, whether you're in support of Anthony, whether you're in support of Metcalf and his family, or neither for that matter. How difficult is it to have a visiting judge come in a big high profile case like this and remain impartial when it comes to them asking for a new trial possibly?
I think there's some good aspects for having a visiting judge because one, they're going to have a fresh set of eyes on this case. Usually visiting judges come from other counties. That's another great thing. The judge who made this decision came from San Antonio. And so because he's coming from other counties, that public and political pressure is not as pressing because they're not going to be facing that level of scrutiny. Another thing is a lot of these visiting judges tend to be older retired judges. They've already had a long extensive career as judges, and now they're kind of doing a second stint as being like a substitute judge, so to speak. And so they come with a lot of experience. And so I think it actually lends to a more fair and a more impartial process to have a visiting judge on such a high profile case versus maybe a local judge who may be so heavily influenced by outward public and political pressures.
So how, and you're familiar with this, how is Carmelo Anthony's team, how are they feeling right now? They just got this news this morning. How are they feeling? How is Carmelo Anthony feeling that this is the next step and about the next steps also?
I mean, of course, I'm merely speculating, but what I will say is that this is a big win, right? Judge Roche was the one who decided this case originally, and like I mentioned earlier, he said publicly the jury got this right. And so by now, bringing in an outside person to decide on the matter of a new trial, your likelihood of getting that new trial granted has just shot up. You know, they have a better chance of getting that new trial granted now that Judge Roche has been removed from hearing the matter.
The judge at the center of that high school track meet stabbing trial has been removed as the convicted teen is appealing his conviction. You might remember the case is when then 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony was involved in a confrontation with 17-year-old Austin Metcalf.
As a gentleman's agreement for trial. It's kind of like two MMA fighters who have a gentleman's agreement that we're not going to take it to the ground, right? We're not going to do so. We're going to keep it standing, right? And then the one guy who knows a grappler, what does he do? Takes it to the ground. Did he break the gentleman's agreement? Sure. The gentleman's agreement is not worth the paper you would print it on if you printed it. I think that was a big misstep by the defense. Now, yes, I have a relationship with prosecutors, and if they tell me something, I know I can hold them to their word because they know they can hold me to my word if I say something, but it's not legally binding. That's the problem, right? It's not, if I can say, oh, you said you were going to do something. Yeah, and now I'm not because maybe my chief is mad at me.
Just
Maybe I
like
don't
that.
feel like it. Yeah, now I'm not. Like, what are you going to do about it? Which is what they did, which nothing. It was really, I think, a misstep by the defense. I've been critical of this trial, but more so.
No, there was no new evidence found. The only thing that's different is that there is going to be a new judge. But there is some new, excuse me, correction, there is some new evidence in terms of exposing the boy's character. Carmelo Anthony was sending texts prior to him committing that God forsaken action of taking away Austin Metcalf, rest in peace. He sent text to his girl talking about he's gonna lick the blood off the knife. That's crazy work. He's gonna lick the blood off the knife. Also, speaking of Austin Metcalf, he got exposed for saying racial slurs while he was on a basketball team, being suspended from the team for 12 months. Also, he got exposed for doing vandalism, writing KKK. So both these boys are being exposed, and I think the retrial is going to make it worse for Carmelo Anthony.
From the defense standpoint, meaning I felt I never saw enough out of them. This was already a stacked case for the prosecution, and I did not see enough. I wanted to see real fight out of the defense. I wanted to see more. And I think that was a misstep. If you're that concerned about it, unless you have that rapport, get an email, get something saying, Judge, it was something you can hang your hat on. Gentleman's agreement, that was a risk, and it blew up in their face. And there's no obligation to keep that agreement.
Yeah. Carmelo's appellant attorney says a dispute over the agreement affected Carmelo's decision not to testify.
Sure, because probably because what that means is that there was something that had he, taken the stand, they could have crossed him on. Taking the stand as a defendant, as an accused, is very delicate. And 99 times out of 100, you're going to hear defense attorneys like myself say we always advise our clients not to take the stand. The direct examination, when I put you on the stand as you're my client, and I'm going to walk you through your story, that's the easy part. Then the prosecutor has their chance to try and just trip you up, and that's all they're going to try to do. And the last thing you want is an accused starting to stutter and mumble and get tripped up and try to explain things away. It just never looks good. This was a tough case because, again, the homicide was not in dispute. It was the defense. This wasn't a case of you can't prove it. It was pretty well established that Carmelo had committed a homicide in Austin. The question was, did he have a legal right? And I think there were a lot of things the defense could have and should have attacked more in their defense case that they just didn't do. They could have done a lot more. Given it was so biased from the outset, right? Given that we feared that Carmelo was facing down a really tough battle, you gotta leave it all in the cage. You gotta leave it all on the line. You gotta know you left nothing to chance. I've seen more effort in this appeal than I feel I saw in the initial defense case.
That gentleman's agreement, I know that you're saying that it doesn't have any merit and it has no legal grounds, but it's significant because Carmelo's defense was centered on self-defense. And so if he's saying it was self-defense and he don't get on that stand and tell us why.
I'm gonna land my plane with this, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to be 2 hours in the building. I don't think Carmelo Anthony is going to receive justice because Austin Metcalf, regardless if he's racist or not, regardless if the man committed vandalism, writing KKK, I found out he just choked out his mom. That's some crazy work. So obviously he has some temper issues. Still doesn't justify the man from losing his life. So we're trying to justify Carmelo Anthony taking away a life of Austin Metcalf because he's a racist. No, being a racist by all means is not right, but two wrongs don't make a right. Also, why did you bring a weapon on school property? Not only are you an endangerment to yourself, but to everyone around you. If he was caught prior to him doing what he did, that is a felony. And he wants to get an excuse because of what? Because of self defense. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop the cap. Self defense in a school and self defense when you're walking the streets, two different things. We're on school property, you ain't supposed to have no weapon. The most you can have is a rubber band. Maybe the most you can have is a laser. Yo, y'all remember those lasers? They was confiscating lasers. You can even have a laser, bro. They made it seem like a laser was like a big deal. So this man thinks it's okay to bring a pocket knife? No. Obviously, he was scared for his life. Thus, he had it on his personnel. But why did you go to that tent if you know issues is around the corner? So take heed to this, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's one thing to stay protected, but it's another thing to provoke the situation, adding gasoline to the fire. Why was he in that surroundings in the first place? And he wasn't supposed to be there. He was suspended for the record. You provoked it. Then you know what? These people that support Carmelo Anthony, which you can do whatever you want to do, but we gotta add context. Um, because we do understand that Asa Metcalf clearly is a racist. Doesn't justify the man passing away though. So, oh yes, I forgot the point that I was trying to say. So the man, Carmelo Anthony, he has a condition of epilepsy. So you can't be touched. Your life is on the line. Thus his excuse of using a knife so he didn't get into an altercation. So if you're so scared for your life, why did you provoke? Why did you give the statement talking about F around or find out? Put your hands on me, F around or find out. What?
Y'all back up a little bit. Come over here for me. Come over here. I'm gonna put your handcuffs for now, okay, bud? Dispatch 443. Everybody can slow down. I got the alleged suspect in handcuffs right now, detained.
Everyone else can slow down. Suspects detained in handcuffs.
Hold on. You can open up the channel, and medics are clear to come in. Have them come to the northeast entrance. That's gonna be a gate that's wide open there, and then you come to the victim from there. This is the alleged suspect. I am. All right, bye.
Said this is the alleged suspect. He said no, I am Carmelo Anthony. So you're supposed to stay silent. But he confesses that he's the one that did it. Then you have people ignoring that statement, saying that he's the one that did it, saying, "Oh no, he's saying something else." Like, bro, where's the self accountability?
Okay. We'll figure that in a minute. So nothing on your person at all? No, nothing? No, sir. Mind if I reach in your pockets and stuff and all that? Nothing gonna stab me? No, sir. Okay.
I'm gonna be out with this.
And this is exactly what I'm talking about. No self accountability. So this guy named that black man 47 says, "You like Mr. Tatum." So on this platform, I fried Tatum, but we hold everyone accountable. See, this is not against white, black, Asian, Indian. No, this is about what's right. And what's right is that the boy should have never brought a pocket knife to school. There is no excuse for that. But you ignore that though. You only see a black boy and you think he's the victim. Stay away from these type of people, ladies and gentlemen, that have no self accountability because they only see skin color and they can't put context. This man says that I'm Mr. Tatum. What have I said for you to associate me with Mr. Coon Tatum? Saying that Carmelo Anthony should have never had a knife in the first place on school property? See, once again, people only see skin color, and when you try to hold them accountable, they want to call you a guy like Mr. Tatum. In previous videos, I am cooking Tatum for pandering to the boys of Nolan Wells' friends. But he doesn't hear that. He just hears, oh man, Carmelo Anthony, he's the victim. How is he the victim, but he's still alive? Can you imagine? Still breathing, but they want to call you the victim. How? You ain't supposed to have no weapon on school property. Crazy work. People have zero self accountability. Once again, they only see skin color. Oh, we gotta stick together. Well, not all skin folk is skin folk. As a matter of fact, that brother that just commented on the chat, he's probably my worst enemy. Has to be. But through my enemy, I show love. Through confusion, I showed transparency. And the transparency through this live is that the boy should have never had a knife on school property. But yet he gets a parade and protest talking about justice for Carmelo Anthony. How? You ain't supposed to have that on your personnel. Stop the cap.
I'm gonna a little personal there, okay? Just to make sure. Okay.
Oh man, here comes the delusional people in the chat talking about it wasn't a knife. So if it wasn't a knife, what was it? Kiki dash 13 K6B talking about it wasn't a knife because the weapon that he used of choice took away the life of Austin Metcalf. What is this? Is this not a pocket knife? You can purchase this exact knife in Walmart. It's extremely sharp. It will cut yourself before you even drop it to the floor. You have to handle this knife very carefully. That's another narrative these people push on the internet talking about the weapon of choice that Austin Metcalf, unfortunately, is no longer here, that he was a victim to. They're saying that he didn't receive a knife. So what weapon of choice did Carmelo Anthony use? Talking about it wasn't a knife. Stop the cap, man. Don't spread do not spread false information on this platform, bro. Talking about it wasn't a knife. Stop the cap.
All right. The victim's gonna be underneath that tent over there, so I'll get medics. Memorial tent over there, guys. All right.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
What's happening right now?
Pussy boy. He put his hands on me. I told him not to put his hands on me. So you have enough common sense to understand that what you did was wrong. So you should have used your common sense to run away from the situation when it was in front of you. You provoked it by even arguing with Buddy. If you saw Buddy was on that type of time and coming to where you was at, you should have been like, "Yo, I gotta go, man. I gotta go." And then if he was following you outside of school property, then by all means protect yourself because you did everything in your power to stop the situation from occurring, but you wanted to prove a point. You wanted to argue. You confronted the situation. And on top of that, you have epilepsy. Mr. Carmelo Anthony has epilepsy. So, what epilepsy person is going to fight? So, if you're so concerned of epilepsy that these other content creators are pushing, oh, he had epilepsy. That's why he stabbed him. Then you have people in the chat like Kiki talking about the weapon of choice wasn't a knife. What? All the defense for Buddy. No self accountability. He's the victim though, right? He was bullied. Oh my god. He was bullied. Oh my god. But no remorse for the guy that's no longer breathing, even though he's a racist, right? He's a racist, vandalism writing KKK. So because he's a racist means that he should be deleted? That's the common sense that we pushing on social media.
Victim is over here in the north end. They got staff standing to him right now. This is the alleged suspect.
Threatened why he feared for his life, then we don't have that testimony to go on. The jurors, even though I think the jurors were biased also, even if they wanted to not be biased, they couldn't because they didn't have that testimony. They didn't have the person who said that he feared for his life.
Oh man, look at this guy. Hold on, bro. Cortez, bro. Cortez, come on, my guy. Talking about, oh well, he's dead, game over. Uh, Y'all gotta stop using these stories to expose the hidden racism within your heart. If you hate the white man so much, then why do you go to work? Why do you drive on a freeway? Why do you go to the grocery store? Why do you live in the house that you live in? Why do you live in the apartment that you live in? Why do you even step outside if you hate the white man so much? Now, once again, Austin Metcalf was a racist for sure, but to spread hate like that is some crazy work. With this take alone, this goes to show me that you don't like white people, and if you don't like them, then why are you even here, my guy? That's some nasty demonic work. You talking about? Oh well, he's dead. Game over. Stop the cap.
Took a life because he feared for his life. Testimony.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, and I get the sentiment. Again, it's very tricky because there are questions that would have been uncomfortable for Carmelo to have to answer. That any way you try to answer it would have come off less than ideal. You know, there was allegations and evidence put forth that when Carmelo had the initial verbal confrontation, his hand was in his bag, and his hand was presumably already holding the knife in question.
Ho's last name 1976 says you cannot stab someone because you are being bullied. Yeah, there's ways to go about it, like a parent teacher conference, actually having a conversation, telling the principal, yo, this guy is a racist. I'm scared for my life. I'm scared that I'm going to do something I'm going to regret. And before I do that, I just want to inform you that he's been harassing me. Here's a text to show it. And, but that wasn't the case because he wasn't even supposed to be there. Austin Metcalf approached the buddy on his school, well, not his school, but these two boys was rivals. Carmelo Anthony was suspended. He wants to pull up because he was invited. Stop the cap. He was looking for trouble.
Now, I don't think that in of itself takes away his self-defense claim. I can.
Here's another lie we have to debunk by Mr. Bumpy underscore G underscore Jackson. He says in Texas you can. No, in Texas you cannot carry a knife on school property. Stop the lie. Don't spread lies on this channel. You cannot carry no knife on school property. Stop spreading lies on this channel.
I would explain that without Carmelo needing to take the stand, but they would have. The prosecutor is not your friend. The prosecutor is there to make you look guilty, to make you look criminal, and he would have tried to twist that against Carmelo to say you went there, you walked over there with the intent to commit a crime, right? Uh, if Carmelo says no, I wasn't, prosecutor says, well, of course that's what you're going to say. I didn't expect you to admit it now. It's so tricky to have a defendant take the stand. Ideally, if I had to give you
you want something more powerful for your
if I had to give a.
Oh yeah, there's some victims in this life for sure. Somebody's no longer breathing, but they want to say justice for Carmelo Anthony. Oh, he's gonna get justice for sure in jail for sure. He's gonna get that justice.
Scenario where I might have a client take the stand, it would be an alibi case. It could not have been Carmelo on that date because he was at home with his grandmother, helping her with her daily lunch routine. And actually, it was a mistaken identity, something like that. To put him on the stand, again, I want to keep the burden on the state. And I want the state to establish no, he did not have reasonable belief to think that he was in mortal danger. And so he doesn't have that self-defense claim. And
how is it self-defense when you're at a track meet and you brought the pocket knife? That ain't self-defense.
I give great pause. Maybe we see Carmelo testify on a second go around. But that's very tricky because, again, like I said to you before, what I said.
Oh my God, bro. Hold on, bro. Please tell me that we're not this soft in society, bro. So Trinity Smith said, what would you do if someone pushed you on the ground? I would get up and punch and not use a knife. Was that supposed to be a tough question? Trinity Smith? Like seriously, talking about what would I do? I would get up and use my hands. Or I would get up and run away. If I have epilepsy, I'm not scared to look like some type of way. I'm gonna run away, go to the principal, go to the coach, and be like, "Yo, so and so is demonic. They're trying to kill me. Go get this dude out of here." But he didn't even have that type of liberty because he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. He was at a rival school. He was suspended. So if he was pushed or whatever the case may be, he could have used his hands, but he didn't want to use his hands because he has epilepsy. So he shouldn't have been in the situation to begin with. But people are defending Carmelo Anthony because he's black. Oh my gosh, he's a black man. He must be the victim. Stop the cap.
Say is an argument. What he says is a statement that can be, and the state will try to use against him. I would rather bring in the friends. I'd rather circle around third-party witnesses and what was going on at that time and create that reasonable impression without Carmelo having to take the stand. Because he's a young kid. This is a college kid. He's a young man. He's not experienced in testifying in front of a jury. Not to mention, it's only his whole life that's on the line, right? Whether you think he was justified or not, that's a lot of pressure to have. Every word you're saying, everyone's hanging on. It's very difficult. It's very difficult because you're going to be under pressure no matter what. I would have to see how the rest of the trial goes before that point.
Common sense, but apparently you have to read it out to people. So, according to Ho's last name, 1976, says Texas Penal Code Section 46.02 says people under 18 usually cannot carry certain knives. And we don't even have to read that because just no common sense. You ain't supposed to have no knife and no track meat. What kind of nonsense is that, bruh? Even in the hood, people don't be carrying no knives on school property, but he was in the suburbs. Stop the cap.
Point to make that call with Carmelo.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to my initial, well, my not initial question, but my previous question. Uh, how do you fully present self-defense when the defendant himself does not tell the jury what he believed was what was about to happen?
Sure. So you paint the picture as put yourself in Carmelo's shoes. All right. I'm going to paint the scenario of what Carmelo was facing. I don't need Carmelo to tell you because we know he was facing down, or so many people were facing him down. He's on this, these stairs.
Carrying a location dash restricted knife at school or educational institution is a third degree felony. So even having a weapon like that alone, even if he never committed that action, is a felony on school property. But yet they want to call that knife that he used a cleat sharpener. All the lies and excuses except for self accountability. Oh, he was bullied. He was scared for his life. That's why he used it. So he couldn't punch him back. He couldn't use his God given two hands. He had to pull out a weapon? Stop the cap.
Where the canopies were. He's being surrounded. He now finds himself in what's become enemy territory. He goes on to another, these are all sportsmen. There's supposed to be a collegiate kind of brotherhood, right? He goes over to a team, a different team, and he's met very confrontational. You don't expect that. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you think you would have felt if you were, you don't need to hear Carmelo. What would you do? How would you feel if all of a sudden you're being flanked? If all of a sudden you have multiple people of a different skin color, right, coming at you very aggressively? Now,
I definitely wouldn't feel comfortable, but I wouldn't justify me being uncomfortable to pull out a pocket knife and thrust it inside somebody's chest like he's a vampire. Like, what? We gotta stop the cap.
you have no outs. Now you're being told you're not wanted here. Like, you paint it in a way where anyone could relate to Carmelo without having to hear it from Carmelo. That's what you do. You say, look, what else was he supposed to do? What do you think?
Carmelo Anthony could have ran away. He could have told somebody, anybody, but instead he took matters of his own hand and thought he was a vampire slayer.
In your head right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you know he was right.
So you wouldn't have put him on the trial. I mean, you wouldn't have put him on the stand.
That would have had to have been, again, I would have done a lot of things in this case differently to get to that point. But at that point, I have a long conversation with Carmelo. I said, look, this is how it is. These are the pros. These are the cons. Ultimately, it is his decision. He does not have to agree with me. So he can testify against the advice of counsel. But anything I tell a client is because I believe it's in their best interests. And I don't want some prosecutor having a free go at my client. I want to keep the pressure on the other table. Let them prove.
He thought he was Blade. Dude thought he was Blade. Yo, how many times, ladies and gentlemen, have you had an altercation, if any? Why, in your right mind, even if the opposition was some type of like racist, you thought it's okay to pull out a knife on school property? Yo, what's worse, Carmela Anthony thinking it's okay to pull out a knife, or people in the chat justifying for Carmela Anthony saying that it's legal in Texas to defend yourself? Taking away the context that he's on school property.
Why Carmelo's belief was so unreasonable. It was already established what he believed. There was video, the statements he made. He all but confessed to the homicide element of it. He clearly showed concern. So I don't think it's a dispute that he had in himself.
100%. 35 years is a gift. At least he gets to spend some of his life outdoors. Austin Metcalf doesn't have that same opportunity to enjoy life. He's blessed enough not to have life in prison. And now they're going to retrial. Potentially, he might have even more time, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that retrial is going to do anything.
A self-defense belief. You just need to paint why that's reasonable. Why any one of us would have felt and done the same thing. Carmelo was not wrong for going to that other tent. Carmelo was not wrong.
Carmelo Anthony was 100% wrong for going to that tent. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was suspended. Do y'all hear the excuses for the man? He was suspended. He wasn't supposed to be at that school. That wasn't his school. He was invited to go, but he wasn't supposed to go.
For talking to other people from a different school. Carmelo was not wrong for talking to people of a different race. Carmelo did not, commit a crime up to that point. A lot of focus was made on that there was a school rule about not having knives and blades, but he was not.
Yo, y'all see the excuses? So Tamika says so. So Tamika, would you go to the opposing school knowing that it's a rival, knowing that you're suspended, knowing that the opposition is racist? So Asa Metcalf now being exposed as a racist. He has vandalism on his record, writing down KKK. Asa Metcalf also was suspended for 12 months from his basketball team for being racist. Also, you know that Asa Metcalf choked out his own mother? So he has a history of being a delinquent. He is a menace to society, and Carmelo Anthony decided to go to that same school. And you talking about soul. See, that's why we have to use our spirit of discernment. Why would you go looking for trouble? Oh, I'm black. I can go anywhere I want to be. So that same place that you want to be has a whole bunch of races, and that's okay to go? Stop the cap.
Criminally accused of unlawful possession of a weapon. He did not do anything criminally wrong. There was no action taken to that effect.
Tamika says, I'm saying kids do it all the time. The situation was horrible. Oh, yeah, let's not play ignorant. Myself, I have went to opposing schools to watch them, run track, go to school events. That wasn't my school, but once again, let's add to context. And that's what a lot of people forget to do. The man was suspended. Also, he was at a rival school. Also, if he was so scared for his life, why did he go to the same location as a racist, knowing that he's coming for your head? Thus, he sent a text before the altercation even occurred, talking about he's going to lick the blood of the knife. Like he's a vampire. So many signs to stay away, but he still went. But he gets sympathy because of what? Because he's a minority? Where's the self-accountability at? We got to stop the cap.
And quite frankly, you never would have known. He did not brandish it. The knife only became known once he felt reasonably compelled to use it in self.
100% racism is not a crime. Is it a hateful way to live your life, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But they choose to live like that. Just because somebody feels some type of way about a certain ethnic group doesn't mean that they deserve to be stabbed in the heart like a vampire. What?
Defense of his life. You don't know what his hand was doing in the bag. You're in Texas. I'm in Florida. These are open carry states. These are states where
Tamika says, "Of course, I'm not saying it's okay. We'll never know the whole story." Tamika, if you'd like to join the panel, or if anyone would like to join the panel, link is going to be in the chat. Let me know your take on the situation. If you feel like you're being misunderstood, I want to just go into more and elaborate what you're talking about, because everything that you're saying, Tamika, respectfully, bruh, it does not justify what Carmelo Anthony did to Austin Metcalf. Link is in the chat if you'd like to join the panel and give your input.
people can just have firearms showing on their side. People put their hands on their hips. It is reckless to presume what he was doing with his hand when you can't see his hand. Obviously, the prosecution is going to say he's holding a knife, but you can't know that. And that creates a reasonable doubt. And having his hand in his bag is not criminal. So there were so many things I just would have harped on more. I wanted to see more emotion out of the defense, out of the attorneys. Show how much is on the line. I don't expect better from the prosecution to try and put this young man in jail only for the rest of his life, right? We've already discussed the concerns with the venue, where he's being tried, and the jury. You're stuck with the jury that you get. So the only one left to fight for Karmelo really is his defense attorneys, his team. I want to see blood, sweat, and tears. I want to see it all. I want to see you going after everybody. That's what I do.
Yeah. If you're just not joining us, fam, I'm sitting here having a very spirited conversation about the Carmelo Anthony judge recusal hearing. They're inside of that building that you see right now on your screen, and there are no cameras inside. There are reporters inside. They've been allowed to use pens and notepads, but they cannot have recorded devices. So we are awaiting the decision that could come in any moment. Carmelo Anthony is seeking a new trial, but before that could happen, they need to get rid of this judge, Judge Roach, because Judge Roach is a roach, and he needs to be squashed. We got to squash him out of the legal system. He makes Texas look bad. I know that it takes a lot to make Texas look bad because we got so many uncivilized mutts roaming Texas and these courthouses and roaming our streets. But this is one of the worst of the worst. And he got to go, man. He got to go. So the attorneys for Carmelo Anthony, led by Russell Wilson, is they're in there fighting for him right now, fam. They're in there fighting for him right now. They're pleading their case. They've taken their case to a judge who was appointed by the regional judge, and they want a new judge. They need a new judge. All of the evidence so far that I've seen has supported them being able to get a new judge. So I don't understand why they would not grant him a new judge. Jack, if that happened, if they didn't grant him a new judge, well, what's next? If the judge don't recuse himself, he already refused to recuse himself, but if the new judge doesn't recuse the old judge stays in place. That means with his same old ideas and implicit biases and his belief, his uh, his undeniable belief that Carmelo Anthony was guilty and deserved to be in prison for 3 decades plus. What's the next step for the defense?
Well, the next step is going to be procedurally the motion for the
times before they even did anything to you or touched you. You should have left the tent. That was his first mistake right there. When you trying to prove self-defense by deadly force, you have to have taken every option to get out the situation. He had an option to get out the situation. He did not have to stay in the tent when he did that. Two, he had the nerve to say, touch me and see what happens. You see what I'm saying? Like, Karmelo knew he had a knife on him. You see what I'm saying? And boom, you getting into it with 3-4 boys. Like you know they're gonna jump you. You know what I'm saying? So you egged him into fighting you, so you had a reason to stab him, and it didn't go.
Ho's last name 1976 says, well, at least he'll have lots of Roman noodles. Yo, that commissary, man. Yo, he's gonna be eating Roman noodles, man, for 35 years, bruh. Was it worth it, bruh? You could have walked away. You could have enjoyed your life. So you trying to prove a point when you have epilepsy made you go to jail for 35 years. They was trying to give you life. So in your personal life, you know, you can be caught up in a situation to where you want to retaliate. Unless your life is on the line in jeopardy, there is no justification to pull out a knife and stab somebody in the heart like you are a vampire slayer. That's some crazy work.
His way. Like, it's levels to self-defense, and I feel like we need to start teaching people what real self-defense is when it's coming to using deadly force. Now, when Austin hit him, that was his right to hit him back because you hit me back. Like, we're fighting with our fists. Austin should never touch the boy, period, though. But he didn't have to kill him. Like, his life was not in danger. You at a track meet. Your life is not in danger at a track meet. You was in a tent that wasn't your school tent. Yeah, it's like they was trying to bully you type shit, but that's when you was supposed to walk away and go about your business. You didn't have to stab him. I don't think Karmelo should have got 35 years though either. I felt like maybe if he maybe 15 or 20 because he young. Like, yo, I don't think nobody under 21 should get 25 years plus or life in prison. I don't believe that at all. But Karmelo is not innocent and he is not a victim, and this has nothing to do with race. Now, granted, when it is black people, I feel like we do be more harshly judged and our punishment be worse against like a white person that probably did the same thing or similar. But Karmelo definitely do need to be in prison. He definitely killed.
A retrial for Karmelo Anthony is the worst
for the new trial. So let's presume that Karmelo gets stuck with this now very suspicious judge. He wants to stay on. He gets round two. If Karmelo gets a new trial, what I would do as a defense attorney is I would legally agitate the judge every chance I got at the new trial. I'm going to try to expose him for the bias he has and create a record and create an appeal to show that this ruling, if he's found to have stayed, was wrong, and I'm going to look to expose him. I'm going to look to keep his feet so close to the fire that his toes burn. Okay? That's what you do. You challenge every decision that judge makes now going forward that is against the defense. Okay, I'm making a record about it. I want not just the ruling, I want the explanation. I want you to establish on the record the case law or the statute that tells me why you are being fair and just, and on an extension, because now you're pissed off that I tried to get you off and you're here, and now I got to worry about you not holding that against my clients, right? You keep his feet, that you show him it was a mistake to ever stay on this case in the first place, all right? Everyone's watching, and now I'm going to make sure everyone's watching you. That's what you do. You make this so uncomfortable for the judge because it can be done. That's what I would do. But first, if you get stuck with this judge, we have to maintain hope that in spite of that, he gets his new trial. The issue with the judge came up after, so it is more fuel for a righteous fire, but we're not dependent on it. I don't want anyone worried. If today's motion goes against us and we are stuck with this judge, we still have every other legal basis for the retrial. And we can still use what the judge did from that trial. Just because he's not recused doesn't mean he's out of the frying pan. All right, we can still challenge rulings he made that they were inconsistent with fact, inconsistent with law, and quietly still on an independent case-by-case ruling, questionable if not outright biased. So you keep pressing the issue. Do not let up on the gas one bit.
Karmelo's new attorneys are also challenging aspects of the jury instructions. So, so how does that look? Because they argue problems with the instructions weaken his self-defense theory.
Yeah, it's crucial. I think it's great. I mean, this appellate team really came together for Karmelo. I was so happy to see a lot of big, prominent attorneys come out, put their minds together. Again, it goes.
Teresa Smith says absolutely can get more time. It's a retrial, and that's what I'm worried about because now there's both texts from both parties, even though the text from Austin Metcalf doesn't matter because he's no longer here. But Carmelo Anthony was sending texts to his girl before the situation even occurred, talking about he's going to lick the blood off the knife, the same knife that he used. That's some crazy work. Who's speaking? This is a interview from Willie D podcast. I'll go ahead and show y'all real quick. And a guest on the show. Let me go ahead and show y'all. Hold on. So Willie D, he is a former member of the Ghetto Boys. Now he is talking about a lot of civil matters that have been taking place. So he has a lot of connections. So we're just giving our insight of what is transpiring. And I don't think it's a wise idea for a retrial to keep it a stack with y'all because through this retrial now, a lot of stuff that we didn't know is now being released. And I don't think it's in the favor of Mr. Carmelo Anthony.
Back in part to the judge, because as a defense attorney, I give my draft of what I think the jury instructions should be. The prosecutor gives their draft to the judge of what they think it should be. To the points that we agree on, some basic procedural stuff, that's agreed, that goes forward. To the points that we disagree on, either we want things in, we want things out, we want things rephrased. I mean, phrasing is so crucial. Every word is just as crucial as the next when it comes to trial, when it comes to criminal law. The judge is the one who made the decision. Right.
And those instructions that the jury gets, they're basically like a legal roadmap for jurors to use while deciding guilt, right?
I mean, look, it's in the term. They are instructions. You are ordering the jury. This is how you think on certain things. This is what you're allowed to consider. This is what not. If you find this factual element in play, you must apply this legal element to it. They are instructions on how to deliberate. And oftentimes, depending on what the jury notes that came back were, you'll see juries say, look, we're confused. Sometimes that means the instructions were poorly given. We're confused as to what we're allowed to do, how we do it, how do we address this. Okay. Ultimately, I'm going to put that on the judge.
Yeah. So ultimately, the question isn't simply whether jurors believe Karmelo. It's whether jurors were given the correct legal framework for evaluating what he did. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, because if the jury either was given improper instructions or confusing instructions, they never had a chance to properly judge Karmelo in the first place, right? So for him to get a fair judgment from a jury, they have to fairly know how to do that. If they're put in a way where the only decision that could come out of these instructions is guilty, there is something fundamentally wrong with the instructions, right? They have to know how they're able and why they would be able to find him not guilty by means of having a lawful legal defense claim, right? So if those jury instructions said, we don't understand, then that's a problem, right? Because they're not supposed to have confusion, concerns about how to be a jury. As a judge, you should have made sure that was never an issue. So that's a big problem because he could have been found guilty because of a very small but fatally important flaw in the instructions.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Let's say the jury received an incorrect or incomplete instruction on self-defense. Can we confidently say that the verdict would have been the same?
No. I mean, look, you have to question. If you question the instructions, you have to question the outcome, right? You can't presume, oh, that mistake doesn't matter. Of course it matters.
I had to ask that question for the slow folks who sitting around saying, well, he got judged by a jury of his peers and they rendered the verdict and we just need to respect the verdict and move on.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. If the instructions are in question. The verdict is tainted. You can't wipe away the mistake and say, well, the ends justify the means. It does not work that way. Okay? Carmelo is entitled to every benefit of every doubt in every legal, factual question there is. You have to give it. He's the one on trial.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're going to give him a fair trial. But once again, I think this is going to work against him because let's talk about the facts. The facts is that Austin Metcalf is no longer breathing. Let's talk about the facts. The man was a racist 100%, but just because you're racist doesn't mean that you should be exposed from the earth, especially from your fellow student. Now, once again, Carmelo Anthony had no business at that school. He was suspended. He was at the opposition school. And for the ones that are in the United States, you can participate and go to other schools, but let's add context. Why would you go to another school if you're suspended? Also, if you know the opposition, especially if the opposition is quote unquote racist, why would you even entertain going to that school if you're knowing that Austin Metcalf is racist? You would stay 10, 15, 20, 30 miles as far as possible, but you went into the fire and you got burnt. Also, they gave you multiple chances to leave. Apparently, quoted by the father, I think his name is Jeff Metcalf, if I'm not mistaken. The father said that the boys, Osmet Metcalf, told Carmelo to leave over 15 times, and he didn't listen to one plea. So he had so many chances, so many flags, so many caution signs. At the end of the day, it's only so many signs that they can give you when you're driving on a freeway. If you want to drive off the cliff, that is your business. And he drove off the cliff. But yeah, he gets the sympathy when he had all the signs in the world. He was in the back alley of New York where there wasn't no camera, no witnesses. He was at a track meet, school property. And on school property, it is illegal to carry a pocket knife. I understand you can carry a pocket knife in Texas down south for sure, but not on school property. We gotta stop the cap.
Okay, his rights are the ones that are threatened here with incarceration. So no, if there's a mistake, you can't just say, "Oh, it would have worked out that way." It does not work that way in the court of law. Maybe in public opinion, like I've said to you before, but I don't care about that. Court of law, he's entitled to fair, accurate instructions, and only then can you consider any decision from that.
Jack, I'm gonna ask you something point blank, man. You're a trial attorney. You've you've witnessed these type of situations many, many, many times. This is what you do. I need your honest opinion. Do you believe Carmelo acted in self-defense? Yes or no? Just simple. Yes or
Yes, yes. I think under the law,
Wow, you got lawyers lying on the internet. Can't trust nobody, bro. Under the law, what is he talking about? You can't pull out a knife on school property?
under the law, he was entitled and acted reasonably, lawfully to defend himself. I think the law, if a
So so the law says that you can carry down south in Texas. Do you know that you don't even have to have a license? The weapon just needs to be registered. But as you know it, if you can carry without a license, those same rules doesn't apply when you go to a private facility. Because on that private facility, they can have no open arms. And if you break those laws, you will get in trouble. Just like a 9 to 5, you have rules and handbooks and guidelines to regulate. Society rules and your 9 to 5 rules are two different things. Are we going to ignore that? So these boys talking about he had the legal right to defend himself, not on school property. Are y'all forgetting that he was on school property? Just to push what? Victim mindset? Instead, these well, not content creators, because the guy that's talking is a lawyer on Abilities Live, but this man should have said it's a very unfortunate situation. You know, maybe Carmelo Anthony can get some grace of good behavior, but he's cooked. And for the youth that's listening to this, hopefully they don't follow his footsteps and not get so wrapped up in their emotions to where they act on their emotions and then regret it later, want to cry, talking about, he put his hands on me. I told him not to put his hands on me. So you want to feel sorry and cry, but you have full control of not letting what transpired happen. We got to stop the cap.
applied fairly to Karmelo supports Karmelo. Yes, I believe he was justified.
Yeah. Man, how does these? I think I got a good answer to this, but well, let me rephrase this. How does residents in small towns where the officials oftentimes wear more than one hat? The sheriff might be the superintendent, also school superintendent. He may have his sons as the deputies. His wife is a judge. His cousin is a judge. His best friend runs the survey department. His sister directs the inspections department. Uh, his grandma been in the permits department, been running the permits department for 50 years. How does someone who lives in a small town like that, where it's so controlled by one or two or three people who are all on the same team, get justice if they find themselves in the crosshairs of the law?
You expose that bias to a jury in two ways. Okay. First, in voir dire, and voir dire is when a jury panel is put together and you're picking your jurors. You're asking them questions.
I'm talking about before you can get to a jury. I'm talking about even just having the. I'm talking about even before somebody says that somebody is even arrested or accused of a crime. I'm saying that little old me, I'm in Collins County, and I just had a fight with. I had a fight with the sheriff's son at school. Sheriff's son was picking on me. I put them hands on that boy. I'm talking about.
Got over 400 votes in the building. 43% says no, and 57% says yes. Carmelo Anthony is innocent. I'm surprised by the poll. So y'all really think Carmelo Anthony is innocent? Please let me know why in the chat.
Talking about Willie D. Style, put them hands on that boy, and now the sheriff wants to charge me. His son started to fight. The sheriff want to come and arrest me and charge me with assault, and harass my family. Where do I go for help? I'm saying this for all of those people who listen to this channel who are in these small towns where injustice takes place on a daily basis.
If you're in a small town and if you're caught up in a situation to where you have the opportunity to leave or stab somebody in the heart, I would recommend for sure don't stab somebody in the heart. If you want to use violence, use your God-given hands. And if you're not man enough to use your hands, then get your pussy ass and run away. Why is it okay to pull out a knife on school grounds? Why is it okay to delete somebody now? Put yourself out of school property and in real life. For sure, somebody put your hands on you like Austin Metcalf did. You have every right to defend yourself 100%, even if that's the cause of somebody's life. But to add context to the situation, that wasn't the case. He was on school property. So why in his God-given brain does he think it's okay to pull out a knife? Stop the cap.
And they feel powerless.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, unfortunately, you don't get justice in the street in this scenario.
Recovery achieved 20% savings.
So you don't get the fair shake, the justice you're talking about. For clients that are in these situations, and I always advise anyone who thinks they're going to find themselves.
Slim Jones says there is no rules to self-defense. 100%, there is no rules to self-defense when you're in society, but there are rules when you're at a track meet on school property. At a track meet, you don't have the liberty to have a weapon. You can't even barely have a T99 calculator. I had my T99 calculator confiscated because my teacher was a hater. You can't even have a toy laser on school property. They confiscated that. You can barely even chew gum, let alone use your cell phone. But Carmelo Anthony thinks it's okay to have a pocket knife on school property? Stop the cap.
Situation. In the moment, you take the L, you stay quiet. The Axon body-worn cameras should be rolling, right? You take the short-term L for the long-term W, right? Because The police are going to do what they're going to do at that stage. You need to get to a court of law.
Top of the morning to Andrew Martinez. Shout out to everybody in the building. Do me a favor and vote. We got majority saying that Carmelo Anthony is innocent. After everything I displayed, y'all still think he's innocent? I need y'all to explain to me, why do you think Carmelo Anthony is innocent when he's the one that brought the knife on school property? How is he innocent?
For someone like me to come in to expose the injustice, to expose the police officers, to expose the bias. I always tell people, don't try to fight my fight on the scene with the police. You're not going to win that one. If they're going to arrest you, you know they're going to arrest you. You're not talking your way out of it. Stay quiet, say nothing, invoke your rights. Don't make it worse for yourself. Don't add a charge that you didn't need to by resisting or being.
Slim Jones says he was in jeopardy. Those boys were 6 feet something, 250 pounds. Okay, yeah, we're not taking that away. For sure, he was outnumbered. But if you're outnumbered, they told you to leave 15 times. It's not like they just jumped him on sight. It's not like they saw him and this, stole off on him. No, they gave him warnings to leave. He wanted to stay. So what's your response to that, Slim Jones? If the opposition that's a rival that's racist, clearly racist, these boys wrote KKK, committing vandalism. Austin Metcalf got suspended from his basketball team from being racist. Also, he choked out his mom. Could you imagine a entity, a son choking out his own mother? So he was on some weird type of timing. Why Carmelo Anthony knows that Austin Metcalf is a racist? Would you entertain a racist, especially if the racist told you to move around?
Threatening the officers, right? Because you're not going to win there. You need your team, right? You haven't put your team together yet. Go through the first appearance, get an attorney, and let the attorney expose it in court, because that's where it will matter. I know it's not the answer you may want or people want to hear, and it's very tough. I tell clients, don't fight my fight. Let me fight my fight for you. If the evidence is there, I will find it.
Yo, y'all making me laugh in a very sensitive situation. A young, Yuck OR says you would be like, I shouldn't have asked that dude to leave. I had to stab. I had a stab coming. Yo, I don't understand. How does a push justify a response of a stab to the heart? If they pushed you like they claim they did, you thought it was okay to pull out a knife? Then they want to say that he used a cleat sharpener. That is not a cleat sharpener. That is a sharp object. All the excuses in the book because he's a brother. I understand brothers get mistreated all the time in the judicial system, 100%. But we have to go by case basis. In the case of Nolan Wells, that is injustice 100%. But this is a different case than Nolan Wells. We gotta stop the cap.
With you, and I will expose it for you, right? But you have to let me do that, so there can be real consequences for these officers, for these politicians. Play the long game, like we were saying before. Life is the long game. Play the long game, right? Losing the battle is not as important as.
Man, y'all have all the excuses in the chat. All the excuses, but no self accountability. So now, Karen. Karan Jackson 4096 says that's not a knife. Yo, when you driving, let me know so I can get off the road. And matter of fact, I have something to sell you. Send me your social security number, your routing and account number, and the 16 digit of your debit card number. We got something to talk about. Carson Jackson. So this is not a knife. So what is this?
Winning the war, and sometimes that's what you have to do.
That part. Hey, let's talk about this broader argument that some people are raising questions about Carmelo's right to a public trial. Do he have a right to a public trial?
Yeah, of course, he has a right to a public trial. You know, it's
So why wasn't his trial public then?
I think because the county was not equipped or prepared for the publicity.
I think because the county didn't want the outsiders to see how they railroad defendants.
That could be it too. That could be it too. The public has a right. Not only does Karmelo have the right, the public has the right. The only time I see a closed courtroom is if there is a victim who is a very young minor. You want to protect their identity, you want to protect their well-being, and in those select scenarios for select witnesses, you may close the courtroom because you don't want that child's information getting out, right? But even then, the attorneys have access, the court staff has access, and the press have access to a limited degree. They know they're not supposed to report certain things. You'll see where camera shots are angled away so they can be in the courtroom but not show the minor. But in a case like this, there's no legitimate basis to close it off. And if that argument was to have been made, it would have been made by Karmelo's team if they wanted it for some reason. I did not hear that they wanted that. I think they wanted and should have had the public being able to watch along, because that's how, we've talked before about what transparency. That's what that's about. It's about transparency. It's about the world knowing that you, the judge, you, the prosecutor, you're doing the right thing. Because we said before, if you're doing the right thing, what are you worried about? What is there to hide, right? We're not talking about opening the doors and having a line, but have cameras, have access, have information. Again, it's very concerning. It's very concerning.
Does limiting cameras actually make a trial constitutionally less public?
So if you're talking about like to zero, or sometimes what you'll see is you'll have one news station and their camera will be set up and they'll share it for all the venues because there's only so much space in a courtroom. The cameramen make noise. They're creating distractions. You don't want the jury looking at the camera crew. You want them looking at the witnesses. So there's an argument to be made that if we're going to have access, we share the access. We make the disruption minimal. But to say no cameras in a case like this, there was nothing classified. There are no high-profile diplomats that I'm aware of that were testifying. There's no basis a case like this should be closed off. If anything, it should have been even more accessible. I mean, this is a huge case for a young man in a daunting situation, and the country has a right to know.
Well, I guess the courtroom has remained legally open to the public because, from what I understand, they've allowed about 40-some people inside of the courtroom, and then there's another 300 who will be watching in a room inside of the courthouse on monitors, right? So it is public, but they're just not allowing cameras. I don't understand why they won't allow cameras, especially in this age of cameras. Everything is in 4K. What are they trying to hide? That's what I want to know. Like, what the hell are they trying to hide? So make.
Oh, Slim Jones. Yeah, I didn't hear about that either until I did a little bit of research. So whenever you hear things or see things, don't believe it. You actually got to do your own due diligence and find the truth for yourself. And yeah, man, this man, Carmelo Anthony said that he's gonna lick the blood off a knife, the same knife that he used to take out Carmelo Anthony. Let's play that.
Anthony's new legal team. The judge who presided over this case back in June
and killed Austin Metcalf at a
of Austin Metcalf's behavioral history. Carmelo Anthony was dressed in a suit and tie for this morning's
agreement, an off-the-record understanding that neither side would go into character evidence, including allegations of violence. They also have numerous examples of Anthony's desire to start fights and to be in fights, and they argue that's what he went to the track meet to do that day. The reason none of that came out at trial is that the defense and prosecution had what they're describing as a gentleman's agreement, an off-the-record understanding that neither side would go into character evidence, including allegations of violence and bullying by Austin Metcalf. The defense now argues that Anthony chose not to testify in his own defense because at the last minute of the trial, prosecutors reversed course and told them if Anthony takes the stand, it would violate their agreement and open the door to all of those character issues being brought out. That agreement is a key part of the defense's argument as to why it is that Anthony deserves a new trial, and that's something we're going to continue to hear a lot more about through the rest of.
Let me see if I can find that text for you. Just give me 1 second.
Anthony's new legal team. The judge who presided over this case back in June, he's since been recused. That's when Karmelo Anthony was found guilty for fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf in the chest. He was then sentenced to 35 years behind bars. Now, since then, though, Judge Roast, he released this video shortly after that sentencing happened. Witnesses say it started all with an argument and confrontation over seating at a regional track meet in April of last year, ending with
a 5-page document. Had we gone there, it would have been like, because now the defense is like, we should have been able to do that. If we're going to do that, we could have talked about what a bad person Austin Metcalf was. And he's like, how about Karmelo Anthony, the actual defendant? Here's what I had in my back pocket. He says, first of all, Karmelo Anthony's girlfriend, Valeria, would have testified that she went to school the morning of the stabbing, April 2nd, 2025, and she told school officials that she had broken up with Karmelo Anthony and that he was stalking her. So this had happened that morning. 1 hour later, Austin Metcalf was dead, according to the prosecutor, clearly painting a picture of this kid, so-called Karmelo Anthony, who was a hothead, who was angry that morning, in some level of emotional distress and turmoil already at the time he showed up at the track meet. It's starting to come together, that hair trigger he had. But here's the real headline. So first of all, he texted the girlfriend, I'm low-key on the verge. He texted her the morning of the stabbing. The verge of what? We're not sure exactly. However, the prosecutor says Anthony had a history of violence and that he wanted to stab someone. Quote, there is a text message where he fantasizes about stabbing someone and licking the blood off the blade, he said.
Hey, Slim Jones, bro, black people never are known for licking no blood off no blade. Unless you are Wesley Snipes from the movie Blade. What kind of crazy nonsense is that, talking about he wants to lick the blood off his blade? So both these boys had some issues for sure. 100%.
Of Anthony.
Hey, if that's
Hold on, but let's show that on the screen. Because it's one thing to play audio, but sometimes you got to see it to believe it.
Anthony allegedly fantasized about stabbing someone, writing, when I stab somebody, I'm going to lick their blood off the blade. Prosecutors say they also allegedly fantasized.
Bro, what?
They're trying to hide their mess ups. You and I, you've become quite the legal scholar. I got to tell you. So a lot of things I touch upon now, you're a step ahead of me. And we've talked about the video is objective. The video catches what it catches. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care what you think, right? If you mess up on camera, we're all going to see it. And there's no real debating what we saw on TV. If there's no camera there And I say, Willie made a note when he wasn't supposed to. He said, I didn't make a note, or the note was just like a love note to my family or something. Then you have reasonable doubt, you have plausible doubts. You have an excuse you can make. The camera watches all, catches all. It's a sign that this courthouse is a little behind the times. You hear in South Florida, they're updating the courthouses. They're putting in big screen TVs, more of them, so the jury can see, so the audience can see. They're putting microphones everywhere. I can't talk anywhere in the courtroom now without being recorded. They're behind the times. It's not a good look. And if Karmelo gets the retrial that he deserves, they should rectify that.
Yeah. What happens if Karmelo wins today?
If what?
What happens if Karmelo wins today? If the judge grants that recusal?
If he wins today, I become very optimistic about the next hearing, because today's motion, while serious, and it is serious, it's also not taken lightly. You're asking a judge to recuse a judge, right? It's not as flip as, I don't think he likes me. I don't like him that much. He looked at me funny. He made me feel bad. Take him off. There's got to be a finding of a legitimate legal concern, right? And if there is, it calls everything else the judge did into question, right? It bolsters the motion for a new trial, because now if this judge had to be recused, how do we implicitly trust anything he did beforehand, right? He was itching to get on TV. This guy knew from the go. I got the Karmelo Anthony trial. I'm gonna get a book deal. I'm gonna get on Nancy Grace. It's gonna be good. I'm gonna get to retire and go to private practice. I'm the judge who presided over the conviction of Karmelo Anthony. It's gonna be great, right? No, Slick. That's not how it works. So I say you show, if it's shown that he put himself first. It's kind of the idea of fruit of the poisonous tree. When you have a bad arrest, everything that comes from the arrest is tainted, and that's what you have here. So I become very excited for Karmelo if today goes for him. If it goes against him, I'm still optimistic, but man, does it put fuel in our fire.
Yeah, if he gets that, I don't see how they can. Like, the only way that they can not give it to him is if they say, you know what, man, we know you got the deck stacked. We know that you're right. And we know all of the signs point in the direction of recusal. But we're not going to do it because we're Gallen County, boy. And we do things our way down here. And we don't care nothing about no law now. You get on out of here with that righteous stuff now, boy. We don't care nothing about no civil rights and stuff. We believe in silver bullets. Okay, so you get on out of here with that now. That's the only way I can see them not doing it, because everything about what the law says supports a recusal.
I agree.
The judge gave them a straight up layup when he did that interview. He just couldn't help himself. When he did that interview, he gave Karmelo and his team a layup. It's almost like God said, you know what, man, let's keep this arrogant thing going. I got you, John. Let's keep it going, Roach. Let's keep it going. And I'm gonna turn this thing around, man. I'm gonna use you as the catalyst to do it. Can you explain to people who may not know how this process goes, that winning the recusal motion doesn't erase the conviction?
Sure. So right now,
User ZP6FF says he's on video confessed to the murder. Yeah, when he was getting arrested by the police officer, he was crying, talking about, he put his hands on me. I told him not to put his hands on me.
Okay. Yeah. You want me to get up now? Yeah. Go. All right. The victim's gonna be underneath that tent over there, so I'll get medics. Memorial tent over there, guys. All right.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
What's happening right now?
Dang, that sounds like a killer.
tent over there, guys. All right.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to. He put his hands on me.
He put his hands on me. I told him not to put his hands on me.
The issues are independent, um, but there also is a nexus, right? Because what we're saying is on the presumption that we will get a new trial, this judge is biased. This judge is incapable of being fair, being neutral, being out of the equation. All right. So even if you find that, because Karmelo could win the retrial on other grounds that are not explicitly related to the judge, that evidence came in when it shouldn't have, the jury instructions were misapplied, anything that was there that taints the verdict, right? Typically, it would just go back to the same judge and you'd have a retrial. But we're saying now this judge has brought it upon himself to really show his hand. And now we feel it could be, if not in fact, is part of the reason why Karmelo did not get a fair trial. If we get a second bite of the apple, which we think we should, and I think he should, then it's not fair to Karmelo, and I say in a legal respect, because there's clearly a legitimate concern of partiality. So, and it just raises the issue again. It bolsters the argument for a retrial, and if not, at least raises concerns that we're not sure, why these mistakes were made, but they
Okay,
were.
listen. Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off, but Attorney Andrew Wilkerson is back. So how did it go? What was it like inside of there?
Mike made it inside. I couldn't get inside. The overflow was full, and the courtroom was full. So like I told you in talking to Russ, I could talk to you about it now. His plan was just to get straight to the meat of it, man. He didn't want any fluff. This isn't, and I think my comrade here spoke about that. This isn't about how the judge feels about you. This isn't even based on the judge's rulings. This is squarely based on the judicial canons that have to do with him being impartial. That's all it's based on. So you want to keep arguments simple when it's simple, and I believe Russell Wilson did that, man, and I'm happy about it.
Right. So what's the next step now?
Well, tomorrow they have the motion for new trial, which Judge Roach will obviously not be presiding over. So, it's still a fight, man. It's still a fight. We gotta keep our fists up. We can't drop our, we gotta keep fighting, and we'll have more information for you tomorrow. But the appeals process is still in full throttle. But it's just you gotta knock each domino over one at a time, man.
Right. Were you able to see Karmelo's parents? Were you able to visit with them at all?
Yes, yeah. I didn't visit with them yet. They're speaking to their attorney, but I will get with them and see how they feeling about it, man. But I mean, they got to be able to see a little bit of light, at least an inkling of light at the end of the tunnel. An appeals process is a long tunnel, but a little bit of light is some hope, man.
That's what I'm talking about, man. I think you're going to come back and join me for the Nolan Wells prayer visual in about 45 minutes or so. Will you be able to join us?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay,
yeah, for sure. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Attorney Andrew Wilkerson. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the update. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. Hold on. Let me do my dance. Let me do my dance. Yeah. We going home. Yeah. Say, man. Say, fam. That's how it's supposed to go, man. So that's one step.
People celebrating. There's nothing to celebrate. And matter of fact, once again, I think by the retrial, things are just going to get worse. The only thing that is new is that we have discovered how racist Austin Metcalf is, that he got suspended from his basketball team, how he choked out his own mother, and how he spread vandalism of KKK with spray paint. But that doesn't take away the case or justify him being deleted, removed from this planet because he's racist. Because you can be whatever you want to be as long as you are not in danger to yourself or others. And yeah, was he being the initiator in terms of aggression 100%, but he didn't come through with a weapon such as Carmelo Anthony responded with a pocket knife. How does that justify getting bullied to respond with a pocket knife? Then they want to talk about justice for Carmelo Anthony? because he's black? At some point we have to look past, no, not some point, we have to look past skin color and judge the person by the fruits of their labor. People saw Barack Obama was a black man running for president and they just voted without even looking at his political views. Barack Obama is the first president to make the Fruity Pebble community legal to get married. Oh man, this shit is hilarious. Obama's the president to make it legal to get married. So as a Christian, how do you feel about that? Now all sin is equal for the record, but that's some crazy work. Just because somebody shares the same skin color as you doesn't mean you have to abide by them as if it's law. Not all skin folk is kinfolk.
I think this is akin to graduating high school. Like you want to celebrate, but in the back of your mind, there's more work to do, right?
We don't rest on our laurels, right? We're not all the way out of the woods yet, right? We take the win, we reconvene, take a breath. That's huge. But now we got to finish this off. That it's a 1-2 combo, right? You hit him with the jab, now you got to hit him with the hook. You got to follow up. You got to knock this out now. But that's very, very good. That was, in my opinion, the right decision, right? Your colleague said it best. You get right to the point. For appellate cases, they don't want to hear the grandeur. They want to hear the law. They want to hear the facts. I'm glad to see that we were affirmed in our beliefs, that it was so clear from a legal basis. We go back and forth, you and I, on the viewpoint of public opinion versus the viewpoint from a courtroom, right? And I always am hanging on what happens in a courtroom. I thought legally this should have been a no-brainer. Sounds like it was, right? Sounds like it was that clear. Again, when you go towards a defendant's concern, an accused person's concern that the judge is biased in some way, you have to defer on the side of caution, remove that judge. The judge is not, you don't have to establish it was true, to establish the belief is true and the reason for the belief is real, and take no chances. I'm very, very happy for Karmelo, his team, his family, for us watching, and let's get it home now. There may be a delay now because now we're going to have a new judge for tomorrow. That new judge may not be ready for that hearing. So I just bring that up as that could happen as a technicality, right? Because the new judge has to get caught up to speed on what's happening tomorrow. But if not, if there's no delay, I will read that as a positive.
I think that everybody, I believe this is all hands on deck. There's no way that the new judge should not be ready for this already. He's had months to prepare for this. They know what's coming. They know what's coming down the pipeline. So I don't see why the new judge would not be prepared. I mean, I know that they're Collin County and many of their officials act backwoods. They're stuck in the past or whatever. But I think this is where the big guns come in and offer advice. Those big counties that are used to these big high-profile cases and stuff. If it's me, I'm reaching out to some of my people in the bigger cities and asking them for some advice.
Yeah, it depends on where they get the judge from. If they stay in-house, stay within the county, this case now has to be, from a procedural perspective, it has to be reassigned. I mean, now the chief judge in the court, in the county says, okay, this judge is off. I have to reassign somebody. Goes to a pool. You see who's available. You make sure there's no other conflicts. It needs to get reassigned. Like, even if this was, let's say we say today was a foregone conclusion. No way this judge could stay on. The administrative judge can't presume that, he can't move on that until it's said. Maybe he has someone in mind. I hope he does, but he can't have reassigned it until the recusal is in effect. Now it's in effect, right? If they go.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's go into the polls. We have over 600 votes in the building. 59, almost 60% says Karmelo Anthony is innocent. What? How is he innocent? Please elaborate. How is Karmelo Anthony innocent? According to the polls, y'all think he's innocent. The man brought a pocket knife on school property and he's innocent? How?
Out of county, they say, you know what? We're going to play it super safe. No one in this building touches this case. We're going to a sister county for a judge. That then could be a reason for a short reset, because it's less likely an out-of-county judge would be prepared. Not that he couldn't get prepared, but wouldn't be prepared right now at this moment to hear tomorrow's hearing. As long as they take the approach that most protects Karmelo's rights, That's the approach I want for him.
Yeah. Where is the what's the judge? I know you've never been in this position before, but what would you imagine the judge is thinking right now? Judge Roach.
There goes that book deal. That's what he's thinking. Now he's got to be thinking, I really hope this issue goes away quietly because, like I said earlier, he took the risk and struck out on now there is a legal finding. There's a legal opinion from a superior judge saying you are recused. Like, I am ordering you recused. You don't have a say anymore. There are laws and there are facts at play that are concerning enough for us. We're removing you. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on a short vacation. If he goes on a short hiatus, if he gets reassigned out of the criminal division to family court, civil court, probate courts. This is a very bad look for a judge. If you remember, years back, the Parkland shooting case, that was very big for us in Florida, right? Nicholas Cruz, he goes into the school. We all know what happened. Judge Scheer presided over that case, that trial. And at the end, she was seen in court hugging prosecutors, okay? It became such an ordeal, she abruptly resigned and retired because the optics was so offensive from a legislative standpoint, from a legal standpoint. If this guy gets reassigned and that's the best of it, he had a good day. He should now take summer break. Take your PTO, go home, get out of town, get out of the spotlight, cancel those TV interviews, put the book deal on hold, and hope that this is the end of it and not the beginning for you.
25, and she told school officials that she had broken up with Karmelo Anthony and that he was stalking her. So this had happened that morning. 1 hour later, Austin Metcalf was dead, according to the prosecutor, clearly painting a picture of this kid, so-called Karmelo Anthony, who was a hothead, who was angry that morning, in some level of emotional distress and turmoil already at the time he showed up at the track meet. It's starting to come together, that hair trigger he had. But here's the real headline. So first of all, he texted the girlfriend, "I'm low-key on the verge." He texted her the morning of the stabbing. The verge of what? We're not sure exactly. However, the prosecutor says Anthony had a history of violence and that he wanted to stab someone. Quote, there is a text message where he fantasizes about stabbing someone and licking the blood off the blade, he said of Anthony. He was obsessed with starting fights, said the prosecutor, and he was prepared to prove that, revealing Anthony had previously been taken by his parents to a special program at LSU for kids who cannot keep their hands to themselves. He went on to say, let's see, there was one other thing suggesting that there was previous aggressive behavior and text messages about a knife in particular. That came out a little bit after. So all of this is deeply disturbing and would not have helped Karmelo Anthony at all, Arthur. So what do you make of it?
Well, first of all, this type of evidence usually only comes out if the defendant's going to testify. You can't unless it's absolutely relevant. Now, maybe the part about the girlfriend going that day, because that's relevant, right? That's within hours of this happening. That may have come out, but it didn't. And I mean, that's the thing, the difference between a jury and a judge. A judge at this point, you could let it all hang out. And Megan, I mean, I think Hail Mary is what the term used. I would say a miracle. In other words, they made a passing reference to him being not a nice kid, but they really had a tremendous amount of ammunition. He kills the guy with a knife, and they have text messages of him dreaming of stabbing something with a knife and then licking the blood off his blade. I mean, this case is not going anywhere.
Yes.
And it's a new judge, right? They wanted the judge recused. He wasn't going to be fair and impartial. Good. I'm happy. There's a new judge with a clean slate, and I'm sure this judge is going to be like, okay, I think everything went well at the trial.
Yes, exactly, because it seems like a no-brainer.
Look at the facts. Like, you was asked to leave the tent multiple times before they even did anything to you or touched you. You should have left the tent. That was his first mistake right there. When you trying to prove self-defense by deadly force, you have to have taken every option to get out the situation. He had an option to get out the situation. He did not have to stay in the tent when he did that. 2, he had the nerve to say, touch me and see what happens. You see what I'm saying? Like, Karmelo knew he had a knife on him. You see what I'm saying? And boom, you getting into it with 3-4 boys. Like, you know they they gonna jump you. You know what I'm saying? So you egged him into fighting you so you had a reason to stab him, and it didn't go his way. Like, it's levels to self-defense, and I feel like we need to start teaching people what real self-defense is when it's coming to using deadly force. Now, when Austin hit him, that was his right to hit him back because you hit me back. Like, we're fighting with our fists. Austin should never touch the boy, period, though. But he didn't have to kill him. Like, his life was not in danger. You at a track meet. Your life is not in danger at a track meet. You was in a tent that wasn't your school tent. Yeah, it's like they was trying to bully you type shit, but that's when you was supposed to walk away and go about your business. You didn't have to stab him. I don't think Karmelo should have got 35 years, though, either. I felt like maybe 15 or 20 because he young. Like, I don't think nobody under 21 should get 25 years plus or life in prison. I don't believe that at all. But Karmelo is not innocent and he is not a victim, and this has nothing to do with race. Now, granted, when it is black people, I feel like we do be more harshly judged and our punishment be worse against like a white person that probably did the same thing or similar. But Karmelo definitely do need to be in prison. He definitely killed.
A retrial for Carmelo Anthony is the worst thing to happen to